button right here. All right, going live. Hitting the button. All right. I think we are live because I hit the go live button. What is going on, everybody? This is Randall Thor 19, the man with the million, back again with your weekly Xbox 2 podcast. And as always, my co-host, my buddy, the one and only Jez Corden of Windows Central is here. And man, he was fired up in the pre-show. What is going on, Jez?
Yeah, not so bad, man. Not so bad. Fired up, but also tired at the same time. Oh man, I've run out of tea. This is not good.
You're run out of tea.
How have you been, man? Do you want to tell people why we missed yesterday?
Yeah, it was my fault. It was just I had people over, so couldn't do the show while they were here. So, but hey, if you can't do the show Friday, we always try to do the show Saturday or Sunday. So that was my fault. It happens. This is the thing about doing a two-person show. When one of us is busy or can't do anything, well, you can't really do the show. Well, I mean, I could do a show like solo, but I don't want to because I need Jez's experience and his knowledge, and it helps. It basically is a show. There's no Xbox 2 without Jez Corden. Even though I could do something solo, it just wouldn't be the same, right?
Well, it'd be the Xbox One, which would violate some kind of copyright, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I got an email the other day from Microsoft saying that we'd have to drop the name Xbox 2 because it's trademarked by them, and I was like, no.
Did you really?
No, of course not.
You sounded really sincere then for a moment.
Yeah. Can you imagine if instead of calling it the Xbox Series X, they called it the Xbox 2, and they actually did email me and was like, yeah, you have to give us that trademark now because you saw the creator of Joseph Ferris, the guy who made what's that that really cool co-op game a couple years ago, the guy that said F the Oscars at the Game Awards. I forget the name of it. He's got a new game came out. Yeah, well, yeah, he made Brothers, but there was one he made for EA that was really cool. I totally forget what, and I love that game. I forget what it was called. Either way, he totally went in on the naming of the Xbox Series X, and basically was just like swearing about Microsoft. And hey, I mean, on this podcast, we've said, yeah, they screwed up the naming convention of the Xboxes a while back. I mean, Xbox Series, I don't necessarily. People are saying it's a way out. Yeah, totally forgot that. But that is the name. Xbox Series isn't necessarily the best name for a console. I don't know, PS4, PS5, those are always right to the point. Even like the Nintendo Switch or Nintendo Wii is better. Xbox Series, we kind of made fun of that, but yeah, we got a lot here to talk about. Face said, did you guys see Jason Schreier's tweets or an article on CD Projekt Red? We did, and
we're going to talk about that, right?
Yeah, that is definitely a topic we will be talking about. Because I have some things I wanted to say about that Cyberpunk. I haven't played the game yet, Jez. I haven't played Cyberpunk yet.
Yeah, you're going to be waiting a long time though, because they've delayed the next gen patch too. But yeah, it's probably also a good thing, to be honest, because you'll be able to experience it, quote unquote, polished.
Well, I mean, we'll see. They basically said that the free next gen patch would be coming at the end of the second half of 2021, and like to me that could literally be December 30th, 2021. Hey, the next gen patch is here 2 days before the new year, and they wouldn't be lying in that regard. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But clearly they've learned a lesson from announcing things and then not delivering. So maybe they're giving themselves a very wide berth when it comes to that stuff. I don't know.
Yeah.
But Rand, before we continue, I've got to give a shout out to my cousin Mia, who is listening to the podcast with us today.
Really?
So hi, Mia.
Hello.
Oh, and I've also got to tell you a story, man.
Okay, tell me a story.
I am psychic. I am literally psychic.
In what way? Did you predict something?
Well, last night I dreamt that there was an electrical fire in my room, and that there was sparks flying everywhere and electricity. And I woke up and I was like, "Oh, damn, that was a weird dream." And then just now, I discovered that a lamp on my desk is broken, and the base is like melting underneath, even though it's turned off and it's super hot, and I can smell burnt plastic. So, yeah, I'm psychic, man. I'm psychic. I literally just predicted my own death. Like, what's that movie? Final Destination.
Jeez.
So yeah, I could have burned to a crisp today. But I digress. Maybe we should continue the show.
So yeah, that's okay.
While I get rid of this burning plastic.
So so outside of this burning plastic that almost caused your death, how was your week?
It's pretty good, man. You know, getting back in the swing of things now after Christmas. It was CES 2021. Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas. Well, not in Las Vegas because it's all virtualized now because of endless pandemic forever is just, stopped us from having shows now. There was a million laptops, like 70 gaming laptops announced or 70 laptops announced or something like that. Crazy amount of laptops. So, all the people who said the PC market was dying were grossly misinformed. And that's it, really. Just been spamming along, working, digging for leaks. Might have some interesting leaks next week, possibly.
We do need some leaks up in here, Jez. There hasn't been a whole lot of stuff happening in January. Well, there's not a lot of stuff that happens in January regardless. Everything kind of, the video game industry kind of just comes to a grinding halt. Everybody's like away from work, right, for almost like a month. I know everybody at Xbox was like on vacation for a month. We need some news. We need some. There was a surprise this week. I mean, when we get into the topics, we'll just give you guys a hint. The Indiana Jones stuff, which was completely out of left field, right? I mean, did you expect MachineGames to be in their next game potentially? And we'll talk all about this later on. But like Indiana Jones, that was utterly surprising to me. I don't think anybody. Wild. When you talk about potential games, like, oh, what is MachineGames going to be working on? It's like, oh, Wolfenstein 3, stuff like that. And then, like, Indiana Jones, like, nobody could possibly ever predict that, right?
No. Especially, it's doubly funny given the fact that he had, like, a load of Indiana Jones artifacts in the background. And Phil was even pointing at them in their interview video. That is hilarious.
It is very hilarious. We're going to talk about that. Obviously, there's a whole bunch of stuff here. The Cyberpunk things. Brad Sams talking about more acquisitions. Like, I don't know how this is all going to go out. Seems like the video game industry is heading towards massive what's the word I'm looking for?
Consolidation.
Consolidation in the years to come. A whole bunch of games getting delayed. We have a big kind of an insider talking about Halo Infinite. And a whole bunch of other things. So if you guys could do us a big favor, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe if you're new, and hit that notification bell so you're always notified whenever this podcast goes live or whenever I drop a new video. George says, did you see the Brad Sams video, 3 acquisitions with Microsoft, Google, and Amazon? We did, and we will be talking about that. I don't know how much information or knowledge I have of that. I mean, maybe Jez knows, because Jez knows everything. RA89 says the TV lineup for 2021 looks lame. Really, I didn't really look at any TVs because I recently bought my CX, so I'm not in the market for a new TV. I did see like LG has like a see-through OLED. It's like, why would you want a see-through OLED? Like,
there was loads of really wild stuff. So like the see-through OLED, Razer's crazy sort of gaming chair, and RGB COVID mask. Was it Huawei? Some company's got like a rolling tablet. There's all sorts of weird stuff come out of CES. It's the same every year. But I did kind of like the favorite thing that I saw is that LG started doing 42-inch OLEDs now. Because if you remember, I couldn't get an OLED because I couldn't physically fit it on my wall.
And I think the lowest they made was like a 48-inch or something, right? It was like 48.
Yeah, it's like 48. But if you wanted like FreeSync 2, you needed to go like, I think even 50-inch. I don't even know. But I couldn't get one that was small enough to fit. But now thanks to the power of technological advancement, I could get an OLED now if I wanted, but I don't know. I think I might just stick with what I've got for the foreseeable. I'll have to wait and see. But yeah. Let's get this show on the road, baby.
Let us do that. We got a super chat here from Gordon Redznick. Sorry if I said your name wrong, buddy. It says, great show. Jez, any good strategy and squad turn-based games coming out in 2021? I finished Wasteland 3 Mutant Year Zero, so I need a fix. Great show as usual. Thank you. You have you have any
Disco
on that?
Disco Elysium is coming out for Xbox this year.
Yes.
I mean, if you're talking about Xbox, Disco Elysium's coming out this year.
But is that a
really
strategy?
big sort of,
is that a strategy squad? I thought that was more of an RPG.
Yeah, but it's still turn-based, I believe. I think.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it's turn-based and stuff. I could be wrong, actually. Now you've said that. But off the top of my head, I don't know. I think we'll have to wait and see. There's going to be some that get announced here and there.
Yeah.
I thought Disco Elysium was like strategic combat, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Yeah, I keep an eye out because I don't actually know. I've actually got that article in for next week. Is upcoming games you should be looking out for. So I'll do some research and get back to you.
I want to see that article because there's not a lot of games announced for 2021, really, and realistically, and the games that are announced are tending to get delayed. So I want to know what you're interested in. So we have a question here from Devin Senger. He says, this is a question for you and Jez. What is your favorite game of the 8th generation of console? Now, I'm assuming 8th generation, was that the Xbox One, PS4 gen? Right? Was that last gen? Because this would be the 9th gen, I think.
I don't know.
Well, let's assume.
8th gen is PS4, Xbox One.
Okay.
Wii U, 3DS.
So let's just okay. What is your favorite game of the 8th gen then?
Of the 8th gen, Witcher 3. I actually already wrote this article. My favorite games of the 8th gen. I didn't include Cyberpunk because it's sort of backwards compatible and stuff. It's not really, and I don't have an Xbox One anymore, so I couldn't really include that. But I picked I had to pick Monster Hunter as number 2. I picked Prey as number 3, and I picked Witcher 3 as number 1. But what would you pick, man? What would you pick?
I mean, is there any doubt that my number 1 is Pokemon Shield? That's the worst game of Gen 8 or whatever. No, my favorite 2 games of this gen were Red Dead Redemption 2 and God of War. By a significant margin, I think those 2 games were the best. I mean, 2018 was and then you throw in there like Ori and the Will of the Wisps would be in the top 5. I'd have to kind of more think about it, but for me, when I think back on Xbox One and I think back on the PS4, these are the games I think of, right? When I think of last gen, I'll just top of my mind, these are the games that immediately come to my head. Red Dead Redemption 2, God of War, PUBG, Ori. That's really about it. Those would be the 4 games that kind of stand out to me the most. So, I mean, PUBG, I put 800 hours into it. That was like a daily ritual for me and my friends for, God, almost like a year and a half. We'd get on, play PUBG all night long, rinse, repeat every single day, and every single day felt like an adventure, and it was so exciting. And it continued like that for months after months after months, still feeling that excitement when you hop on with your boys and like, where are you dropping? And you get those chicken dinners, man. Like PUBG was a very special experience. But then, like I said, Ori and God of War felt the same. It's like I think of this gen, those are the games I think of. It'd be interesting to see what everybody else for them. Like when you think of Xbox One, PS4, what games come to mind? Because those are the 4 that come to my mind. What's going on, Snowbike Mike? Great X-Cast today, buddy. You guys are killing it over there and kind of funny. Thanks for stopping by. So yeah, PUBG. God, I love that game. And I hope the rumors of them doing PUBG 2 are real because I don't know. Nothing has kind of grasped me since then. Like I played a whole bunch of Warzone and I played a whole bunch of Apex, but for me it's just PUBG, man. Like PUBG and those other games. So yeah, Luke says, watching for a year now. Thanks for the good laughs. I know it's been a terrible year. Keep it up, guys. Did you see Xbox removing Live from Game Pass Ultimate when they replace it with Ubisoft Connect? So this is your rumor, Jez, that everybody's writing articles about, because I'm Randall Chop Liver, as usual.
Bless you.
The whole Ubisoft being part of Xbox Live or Xbox Game Pass. The funny thing about rumors and stuff like this is that when you say it, a lot of people just assume it's true. They don't even doubt it. You know what I mean? So now everybody in the world thinks that like Ubisoft is going to come to Game Pass, and they don't even doubt that it's like something you've heard, but you don't even know if the negotiations will close, because they very well may not, right?
Yeah, I mean, I did definitely say on the show that it's it might not happen, but oh well. We'll have to wait and see. But I'm what was this question again?
This question was about do you see Xbox removing Live from Game Pass Ultimate when they replace it with Ubisoft Connect?
Right.
It's basically the internal question: is Microsoft ever going to remove Xbox Live Gold and make it free, make multiplayer free?
I think this year could be the year.
You think so?
I think it could be this year. I think that's definitely a thing that could happen this year.
I mean, it's something that could happen. I still think that they're going to remove the free-to-play paywall right around when Halo Infinite launches. I
had a bet with someone for a pizza last year that Microsoft wouldn't remove the paywall last year, and they didn't. But I think it could be this year for Xbox Live Gold. I got a feeling, man. Got a feeling. I don't know for sure. I got a feeling.
The scenario of Microsoft releasing Halo Infinite on all these platforms and it's free to play everywhere, but the only platform where you have to pay for gold to play the multiplayer portion of it on Xbox, I think is going to cause some issues, because it's like going to be free on mobile, presumably on iOS and Android. It's going to be on Steam, where it's going to be free to play. You don't have to pay anything. And then here's the console. Here's our flagship game on our flagship console, the Series X, the Series S, the One X, and the One. Give us $10 a month to play online. Like, that particularly needs to be removed before the game launches. And I think it will. I made that in my prediction video. And I don't know if you saw in my prediction video, but I said that I felt that there was going to be a Forza Horizon 4 DLC coming soon. Hot Wheels DLC. And then our buddy over at Xbox Era, the one and only Mediocre Ed, he said I was right. Imagine that.
Imagine that.
Imagine that.
That rumor sounds pretty hot.
Pretty hot, indeed. Indeed it does. So yeah, what else we got here? RDX Son of Fett says MVG should put the PS3 emulator on RetroArch. All the old games on the Xbox would be great. But just tell me, I don't think this what we've been playing is going to be very long, because honestly, all I played was I finished Insane Gears Hivebusters with my friends. And, it took a couple nights because there was a couple checkpoints that we had some issues with. There was this one in the last chapter where you're on a boat. And I don't know if anybody here has played it, Hivebusters, and played it on Insane. You're on this boat and you're getting to the final boss fight. But before you get to this final boss fight, there's the flock that attacks you. And there's two flocks, right? But on Insane, with maxed out companions, like 3 real people, if you get hit by the flock once, you instantly die, and you don't go down on Insane. You're just dead. So you have to revive everybody, right? Or you can't revive anybody. So if you die, you got to start that whole sequence over. That checkpoint. It's embarrassing to say how long it took us to get past that checkpoint, because somebody would always die. You just get hit once by the flock, and you'd have to restart the whole thing. And then it took because we timed it. It took about 3 minutes to get back to the part where the flock attack you, right? It is so ridiculous on Insane and with like 3 people.
Yeah, I played I played that on hard, not Insane. And so I found that some of the checkpoints, if that's probably the only criticism I could leverage at Hivebusters, some of the checkpoints are a bit annoying because they make you wait for ages before you get back to the action. But that's like the only thing I could criticize about it, really.
Yeah, they have a lot of the checkpoints where like you're about to open up a door and like you open up the door and then you're about to do something, but it's like, why not put the checkpoint after I open up the door? Because I don't want to die and then have to open up the door every single time or see a cutscene every single time. But yeah, dude, like that checkpoint took us like I think 2 nights of playing because somebody would always just die. And then we made a game out of it where we eventually figured it out where the flock essentially, I think it was my buddy Sam who figured this out. The flock always attack the person who has the most aggro. So what we did was we had 2 people stay in the back, not shoot the flock, and have one person shoot the flock, and the flock would always attack that one person. So we basically said the first person out of the 3 of us, we take turns, right? The first person who wins or who finishes the checkpoint, of it, can pick what TV show for the other 2 to watch, right? So my buddy Sam is trying to make my buddy Gopher watch The Witcher because my Gopher does not want to watch The Witcher, but it doesn't matter because I won. I was the one who finished the checkpoint, so I made them watch a couple TV shows. So I won, and I'm sure Gopher's loving hearing that right now. I didn't make him watch The Witcher though. Anyways, so that's basically all I played was just to finish off Gears. Hivebusters, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was amazing. Almost paced better than the main game. I'm interested in seeing what they learn from this and kind of take over to Gear 6 because this is kind of what I want from Gears. So
somewhat like small, tighter, freer experiences, kind of. Yeah, I don't know. It was really cool. I loved it too, and I am interested what they do with this information. I thought the last boss was really cool. Not to spoil it, but it was like it was really different for Gears, I thought. So, I don't know.
So what else have you been playing besides that? Anything?
No, I've not been playing anything new really. I played the Little Nightmares 2 demo on Xbox again, because it was so awesome, and I wanted to see what it looked like on Xbox. That's out now. I've also been playing through Little Nightmares 1 and all the DLC because it's not really plot driven, but there are like narrative elements in the background, and like if you explore, you see like little hints of what the world's truly what the world is and what it means, and do you know what I mean? Like environmental narrative storytelling stuff. So I've been going through Little Nightmares 1, it's a really cool game, and if you're into like sort of if you play it Inside or Limbo and stuff like that, you should definitely play Little Nightmares. I think it's right up there with those.
Dude, the atmosphere in Little Nightmares is second to none.
Yeah, it's so clever, and it's just really uncanny. Some of the stuff in that game, like it sort of skirts that weird line, like like animatronics or stop motion plasticine animation that sort of looks real but also not at the same time. It's really weird, but really awesome game, and I'm shocked it took me this long to get into it because it's like my ideal game. I don't know why I didn't really. But yeah, I'm really excited.
Did you finish it? Did you finish the game?
I finished the base game. I'm going through the DLC now.
What did you
I thought
think?
the base game was like awesome, but like surprisingly short.
Oh, it's a short game. I mean, I think there's an achievement for beating the game, and I think I forget it. Was there a time limit? I think there was. You had to beat the game in like an hour and a half, which I have. What did you think of the kind of twist at the end, though, when you get to that part and you just like chow down?
Yeah, I need to watch some like theory videos on the story, because I was just like, what kind of thing.
I like the little clip you posted on
really
Twitter
freaky,
where you're running away from all the fat people as they're chasing you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
R89
This
says,
is a really cool game.
hey guys, how about Starfield is ready for 2021 with Todd Howard going all in with the indie game and the Elder Scrolls 6 next in line? So I mean, I think me and Jez are both. Well, I'm of the opinion, as I said in my video, that Starfield is going to come out this year. I'm predicting October. I don't know, Jez. Have you come out either way yet? Have you made a prediction about where Starfield lands now that Todd Howard is executive producing the Indiana Jones game as well as Elder Scrolls 6? Does that imply that Starfield is winding down and he can focus on these other games, or what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think like Starfield has to be close. I think it's going to be like what they did with Fallout, where they're just like, oh, by the way, Fallout launches in 6 months. I think they'll do that with Starfield. They'll probably like at E3, they'll demo the game, do like Todd Howard narrating, 15-minute gameplay demo walkthrough, showing off all the features, and then at the end they're just like, oh, by the way, it's coming out in 6 months. Come out holiday 2021, Xbox, PC, maybe PlayStation. Don't know.
Yeah, Ashu Nagu, he wants to know if you can tell us when we'll be getting Forza Horizon 5. Just tell us. I know you know about Forza Horizon 5. Just tell us.
I don't know. Like it's interesting because if there is going to be a Hot Wheels DLC, as is rumored, doesn't that make it weird to launch a DLC expansion and then also launch a new game?
I mean, not necessarily. If the DLC comes out in the next couple months, and then the Forza Horizon 5 comes out at the end of the year. I mean, how much play are you going to get out of a DLC anyways? I mean, I would think about like Gears 5 Hivebusters. I would imagine anybody that's really wanted to play it has played it already. And if Forza Horizon 4's Hot Wheels DLC comes out, people will play it for a month and then move on. So I mean, I don't know. I mean, I see the argument. Like, if you're going to have a DLC this year for Forza, then why have a Forza Horizon 5? But it's like you mentioned before, like, you're in the time of the pandemic. Maybe that DLC was supposed to be last year, and it just couldn't make it. And then I still look at it like this. I think there has to be a Forza game this year, because if there isn't, I just can't imagine a scenario where one of the Forza games releases in 2023. Because if there's no Forza game in 2021, that means either Motorsport or Horizon 5 is next year, 2022. And I don't think they'll release both those games the same year, which means the other game is 2023. And I think that's a huge, like, you're talking at that point 5 years from the next Forza Horizon or 6 years for the next Forza Motorsport. I think that's too long of a gap. So I honestly think there is some Forza game this year, and if I had to bet, it's Horizon 5, and then Motorsport will be next year, and then all the improvements, all the engine changes that they have used for Forza Motorsport will then be given to Playground to work on the next Forza Horizon. But there's one thing I will say, is that I think the age of getting a Motorsport game and a Horizon game every other year is over. I think that's completely done at this point.
Yeah, I think like they can't really do that anymore. It's too fatiguing almost. I don't know. And also it's like they're service type games as well, so it's just kind of weird to do that.
Yeah, I don't think they can sustain the Motorsport every other year. I think that whole release model is going to change, and I know most people expect, well, Forza Horizon every other year. I think that's even going to change too. So once these releases come out, I don't think you can expect, because you used to be able to go, it's like, oh, Forza game every year, whether it was Motorsport, Horizon. That's not going to happen once these two games come out. They'll definitely last for longer. Motorsport, I expect Motorsport to be like Halo Infinite. I almost expect it to be a platform for Forza Motorsport for the entire gen, where they just constantly update it. I do think Horizon will have a release every few years, but I think Motorsport is just going to be that's the only one we get for the whole gen, which doesn't bother me because I don't care about Motorsport whatsoever. I'm a Horizon fan, but that's kind of what I expect. So. And I think you were expecting the same, right?
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. But, I wouldn't... I mean, it's interesting to me when people say, like, oh, I'm not a motorsport fan. Like as if there's no way that you could ever like motorsport. Like, that's the whole point, is to try and pull in new gamers, right? So, man, like, don't count it out. That's what I'm saying. It might do something new and shiny and fresh that makes it, I don't know, more appealing to people who perhaps wouldn't have previously liked it or not. But I don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
Shane Tomlin says Red Dead 2, Spider-Man, Forza Horizon 4, you two frauds. God of War overrated. Keep up the bad work, guys. The Book of X. Hey man, it's all just opinions. I'm sorry that I thought God of War was one of the best games of this gen. I apologize. Write that down.
Need to play that.
Write that down in the Book of X. You should play it now on the PS5 at 60 frames.
I should wait till it comes out on PlayStation Now and play it on my TV.
It already came to PlayStation Now, and I think it left. Yeah,
but it should be there permanently, and it will be at some point. There's no way they won't eventually just copy Game Pass, I think.
Yeah, but
there's no way I'm buying a PlayStation 5. It's too big. Too damn big. I literally have nowhere to put it. I'd have to get rid of my vinyl player, and that ain't happening.
Your buddy Jim Ryan says that it's not feasible for them to put their own games in the subscription service. So if they are going to copy Game Pass, which I agree with you, I think it's only a matter of time before they copy Game Pass 1-to-1. But Jim Ryan's on record saying that they can't, that it's not sustainable, that they have $100 million productions, and they can't put those games in a subscription service day one. It's just not feasible.
Yeah, day one, maybe not day one, but I expect there'll come a point where it's like, who's still buying God of War now? Like, why not just try and get a new audience from it? Why not put it on PlayStation Now? Why not put it on an app so I can download it on my TV?
What about what you said, which people still give me grief because they think I said it, where God of War is going to come to PC in August.
You did say it, man.
I didn't say it. That was your whole thing.
That was all you, man.
No,
that was all you.
No.
The only things I say on the show are the leaks that turn out to be true. All the weird stuff that comes from you, man.
I don't know about that. I think people remember this. Why not bring it to PC? Open up a new audience.
I remember coughing. I don't remember leaking anything.
RDX Son of Fett says Brad Sam says Xbox OS is getting a big update. Do you hear anything about this, Chaz? I know you're always digging for stuff about OS update. And I think I did watch his video where he said a subset of Omega users were getting a flight that basically Microsoft could update the shell and all that stuff on the fly without requiring a system update. Did you hear about this?
I wonder if that might be is that Seashell? I don't know. Basically, Microsoft was working on something years ago called Seashell, which is not like seashell as in on the beach.
Seashell,
it's like
on the beach.
yeah, that one. It's like C as in the letter C, standing for composable shell. And the idea was that you'd have all the Windows code base underneath, and then you could just the device would detect what it was, like if it was a tablet or a console or a TV or what, and then it would compose a shell that would match, the system or whatever. And they were gonna use that for the Surface phone, and it got delayed, and all this stuff happened. Blah 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 blah. I don't know that much about it, to be honest, but the idea that they can update the shell as an app is not new. It's something they've been working on for a while. So they've been working on that for Windows as well. And you might have seen some, if people read Windows Central, you might have seen some leaks this week of new start menu Microsoft showed off, and Windows 10X, which is like their Chromebook sort of allegory. They are working on a lot of new shell stuff since Panos Panay, who made the Surface line, is now in charge of all of Windows, and obviously he cares how it looks. Until recently, there was nobody at Microsoft really with the authority to say all our design looks like crap. Can we fix this, please? So clearly, like, Xbox has got a massive facelift and it looks way better than. Do you remember what it looked like in 2013?
Yes, I remember
Clunky.
getting my Xbox One in 2013 and hooking it up and just being immensely disappointed with the dashboard and the party system. Because I loved the party chat. I was in party chat all the time during the Xbox 360 era, and the fact that they changed it and made it so it's like I remember playing Rise, and then my buddy was playing something else like Dead Rising, and it literally pulled me into Dead Rising. And I'm like, what the hell did they do to the party chat? It was a complete, as you would say, controversy. Is the right word for that? It was horrible. It was a horrible dashboard. And, like, you had perfection on the 360. You had the guide. Because remember, there wasn't a guide on the original Xbox One dashboard. You had everything. They perfected it all in the 360, and then for whatever reason, maybe they just felt like it had to be different because the Xbox One is a new system. Kind of like how, like, well, we got to change the PS5 UI because it has to be different than the PS4, right?
Well, it's because of Kinect. You had these, like, huge, chunky, touchable areas, and it was sort of like riffing on Windows 8, which was oriented around touch, which totally flopped and failed and stuff like that. It was just a whole sort of offshoot of that complete mess. And that's like where Microsoft's thinking is now, is more oriented around give people what they want, go where they are, prioritize what people use, and not try and, like, shove a rectangle in a circular socket, sort of thing.
What a Kinect! What a waste! What a horrible waste!
Yeah, well,
I remember
it did win them a $2 billion contract with the U.S. military.
Yeah, it did.
Let's not forget.
But I remember the first time I met Phil and I played Halo 5 with him. I told him that Kinect was I don't even know how after this, my first conversation with him, I was so direct that I don't know how I became friends with him and continued to play games with him and talk to him, but I told him that Kinect was a piece of garbage. Like, straight up, I was just, because we were talking, and this was like in 2015, and he asked me what I thought, and I was just like, yeah, I felt that you abandoned all of us. Like, straight up, I was like, I felt in 2013 and 2014, you abandoned us. You didn't care what we wanted. And I think Kinect was proof of that. Nobody wanted Kinect. And then I spoke as somebody who had, like, literally played everything. Like, I was, I basically told him, like, everything that they did in the early part of the Xbox One was just trash. I use, obviously more elegant words than that. But, like,
the thing is, it's weird because it's like, did Kinect really detract from their ability to deliver games? Not really. It was like a different.
I was told no. I was told by somebody very high up that's not Phil, that that a lot of core games were canceled in favor of Kinect stuff. Lots.
What?
Uh-huh. And this person has never lied to me about anything ever. But yeah, this person told me that there was plenty of hardcore games that were canceled in favor of Kinect trash.
Oh, you mean Kinect games?
Yes, Kinect games, not necessarily Kinect the peripheral, but games.
Oh, I was talking about the hardware. But yeah, I guess. Man, it is what it is,
Anyways, a little side track there, but Hypnoid says, "Good morning, afternoon, evening, Randall, Jez, and chat." You got to keep in mind, Jez is. I'm Randall Chop Liver or Randall Nobody. Jez is the superstar. It's funny because remember when I went on that whole side tangent in the last podcast, which some people thought I was salty, but, like, I really don't care. I just find it amusing. And then somebody literally took what you said during that podcast and was literally made articles about it. You remember?
Yeah.
And they even had your picture. They had your picture on the left-hand side with your quote, like it was some inspirational thing you said,
Oh, man. I don't know, man. Have you tried not being chopped liver?
I mean, I've tried. I've definitely tried. What was it you said that people were? Oh yeah, that Microsoft has talked to all the publishers.
Oh, the Ubisoft thing.
It's like breaking. Windows Central editor Jez Corden has said Microsoft has talked to every single publisher about Game Pass.
It's like, I don't know, man. I got a pretty good track record, man.
Yeah, you do. So give me some more leaks.
Next week, maybe.
Stay
tuned.
Next week. So you know what? We'll talk about a leak really quickly. I'll talk about Halo. Our buddy Cloburl, you know Cloburl, right, Jez?
Yeah, he's a pretty cool dude.
He's a pretty cool dude. He tweeted about Halo Infinite and was basically saying that he knows that there won't be a battle royale mode, and that to his limited knowledge, the team is creating a big team battle 2.0, which is he thinks is a better fit for Halo. And among some of the features was that it has a massively enhanced vehicular combat, squad spawning, incoming Pelican drops, and many more surprises. Now, this tweet started to take off, so he deleted it, right? And I was getting some questions about this and the Halo stuff, so I figured we'd see it here. It'd be a nice leak since Cloburl talked about this. Who knows why he deleted it. But let's just say, to my limited knowledge, what he tweeted is 100% true. That there is a big team battle mode that is not, it was supposed to have a lot of players, like a lot, like very much a lot. I don't know how many. And that, it's more in line with Battlefield, where you can spawn on your teammates. There's a lot more vehicle combat. Stuff like that, and there won't necessarily be a battle royale day one. So, will there ever be a battle royale for Halo? Maybe. I mean, remember Halo Infinite's supposed to be a 10-year game, really, like a 10-year platform. I mean, they can easily add battle royale in year 2 or year 3, right? So, when it comes to Cloburl, when he tweets something, I always pay attention. I talk to him all the time. He's a great guy. But Big Team Battle 2.0, more in line with Battlefield. That is something that 100% is I think pretty much true. What do you think about that, Jez?
Well, I haven't heard anything specifically about Big Team Battle, but it makes sense for the franchise, right? Like you've got there's sort of like there's a crowd of people that want battle royale out of Halo, but it's sort of like it can be a trap to fall into. Like Battlefield tried to have a battle royale mode, nobody played it. You know, everyone thought it sucked, and in Fallout 76 had a battle royale mode, nobody played it. Everyone think it sucks. So there's sort of like, if you're gonna do a battle royale mode, it can't be just, oh, we have a battle royale mode as well, especially given the fact that a lot of people who come to play Halo are coming to play Halo specifically because it's Halo, not because it's battle royale. So if they do a battle royale, it has to be sort of like at the right time, maybe not so much at launch because you dilute your player base. Maybe like you actually research and make sure it's actually fun and it adds something to the genre and the game. So I think like doing something that's more akin to the Big Team Battle or Warzone, that's sort of more in Halo's sort of sphere of expectation. I think that makes total sense. But as I say, I have no details on that specifically, personally.
Yeah. I'm really interested in seeing if there's going to be... if there's going to be any betas for Halo Infinite, because I want to get my hands on it. I mean, I love Halo, so I want to get in on a beta. I would imagine they would with the extra year of development time that they have, that they would have a beta at some point. But that is something I'm looking forward to. I love me some Halo. Can't wait to play it. And that is, since we're in 2021 now, what is your most anticipated game, Jez? If you had to, any of the games that are currently announced, What would be the one that you're looking forward to the most?
Well, it's interesting because Microsoft did put out an article the other day that listed all the games that they have coming, and people were saying like, "Oh wow, this is kind of thin. There's like not much in it."
I mean, there's
But it
30
did
games.
say, yeah, but I mean like AAA stuff,
Yeah.
But it did say in the article all the announced games, like at the end of the paragraph, as if to say like, yeah, there's more coming too. And I know of at least 2 games, big games that aren't on that list that are coming from Xbox in 2021.
Oh man.
So yeah, I'm not gonna say what because I don't want to ruin the team's surprise. They should get to announce that.
You should talk about your code of ethics when it comes to this sort of stuff. You're fine leaking code names and stuff for Microsoft hardware or whatever, but you have a particular personal thing about not leaking game announcements, right?
Well, I honestly don't like leaking anything, but the thing is, when it comes to games, it's like it's oftentimes easier to know that it won't leak. But like when it comes to stuff that I found through public facing servers, for example, like Walking Cat on Twitter.
Yes.
He often tweets stuff that just Microsoft have basically leaked themselves. So like when it comes to stuff that has leaked through Microsoft basically posting something by accident, like in a place where I know Brad Sams and Tom Warren and other leakers are looking, then it's kind of like, well, it's either I leak it or someone else is going to leak it. So when it comes to that stuff, I will post it first because I know it's going to leak anyway. But when it comes to stuff that I don't think will leak, I think it's much cooler if the announcement comes as part of a surprise, as part of a big show, and the team gets to announce it themselves. Like even if it's hardware, even if it's that stuff. But last summer when the price leaked, the Xbox Series S leaked, that's because Microsoft screwed up. That was not because like someone at Microsoft was leaking it and trying to ruin a surprise. Someone at Microsoft screwed up, and that stuff just ended up somewhere where it shouldn't have been, and then it just all got leaked. And if it wasn't me and Brad who leaked it, it would have been someone else. So at that point, you kind of just have to hit the button. But some of this stuff I know isn't going to leak unless someone actually speaks about it, and that person ain't going to be me. So.
Fair enough.
It's more fun. Don't you think it's more fun to see it on stage at E3?
Sure.
I mean, they're gonna have some kind of show this year, even if it's like remote and stuff like that. There'll still be like an E3 like show.
Sure. I mean, yeah, 100%. Surprises are always better, in my opinion. So seeing something like you're watching a trailer and you're kind of figuring out what it is, and the excitement builds. And it's like, oh, it's Perfect Dark, or it's God of War, or it's this brand new game, or like, yeah, that's always great. Like I love those. There's some like announcements that just don't get leaked.
Yeah,
those are always fantastic. Like this Indiana Jones thing, which we're going to talk about in a minute, like didn't leak. I mean, there was no rumors or speculation about like. I mean, we all knew MachineGames was working on something potentially after Wolfenstein, but nobody was like, hey, they're also they're talking to Lucasfilm's games, right? That never came out. Commander Shepard says, great thing about today is having the Xbox 2 podcast happening on my birthday today. Thank you guys. Any thoughts on what the Indiana Jones game will be about? Well, happy birthday, Commander Shepard. Hope it's a good one for you.
Shepherd.
And since you mentioned Indiana Jones, let's talk about the Indiana Jones game, because this took everybody by surprise. Bethesda tweeted out with a short little teaser trailer. MachineGames is making Indiana Jones game, and Todd Howard is executive producing it. So obviously, there's a couple things here we could talk about. What type of game do you think it is one of them. Like, when you imagine Indiana Jones by MachineGames, makers of Wolfenstein and Wolfenstein 2, hardcore shooters, right? First-person shooters. I don't really see Indiana Jones being a first-person game. Do you? That's got to be third person.
Oh man, I don't know. Some people were like, well, most people were kind of like really angry about the even the suggestion that it could be, um, that it could be first person, but like that's kind of what Machine Games is known for, right? Like
Well,
I wouldn't be like I wouldn't be particularly shocked if it was
I mean, I don't know.
first person.
The same people said this, same about like Killzone when Guerrilla Games went off and did Horizon Zero Dawn. Like, oh, they only made first person shoot. Like, to me, an Indiana Jones game has to deal with puzzle solving, right?
Mm.
And that's usually something easier done in third person than first person. Platforming, using the whip is something I would imagine is going to be big in that. That also third person easier to pull off. Some gunplay, but not a lot, because you don't want Indiana Jones to be this. I don't know. You don't want him to be Lara Croft or essentially. I mean, this does seem like Xbox's Uncharted or Tomb Raider in that regard, but Indiana Jones was never as skilled with weaponry as Nathan Drake or Lara Croft.
Hey, what? Are you crazy?
Are you crazy? Have you seen the
Don't
movies?
you remember? Yeah, don't you remember the scene where he just shoots that dude from the hip?
Oh
With
yeah,
MP
we shoots
with
that
a- with
one
a
bullet from that
revolver?
dude because the dude has the sword.
Nah,
Yeah.
he's badass with weapons. What are
I'm
you
not
talking
saying he's
about?
not. Indiana Jones is total badass, but he's not a murdering psychopath like Nathan Drake or Laura Croft, who are using.
Well, that's the thing, man. It's Nazis.
Well, that is true.
So it's
That is true.
okay to be a murdering psychopath. It's okay to be a murdering psychopath when it's Nazis.
That is true.
That's
You're
how you
right.
get out of that clause.
Machine Games does have their does love their their Nazi killing, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. To me, it makes the most sense to be third person. Probably even melee combat. A lot of melee stuff going on. I mean, in the movies, he didn't use the guns a lot. I mean, they could
Yeah,
change that for the game
I
or
mean,
whatever.
they're just like there wasn't. They're sort of realistic. Like he has a revolver, but he loses it a lot. He he loses it a lot in the movies, or he doesn't have any ammo. So like, I'm wondering if it's like you sort of find the weapons in the field. Like when Indy's like going around fighting the Nazis, he like picks up an MP40 off the floor and uses it, and then discards it when the clip's empty. It's not like a first person shooter in that sense. Like maybe he relies more on his whip, and the weapons are more incidental to the situation or the what's going on in the game. I don't know. I think it could be like that. But
I mean,
it's fun to speculate, man. I could go
well,
like loads of different ways with
I
it.
saw your response to Steineken, who runs one of the, I think the main Xbox Twitter account, and he was like talking about it's okay to be excited for a game. You don't always have to talk about the exclusivity of it. And you were like, wrong. Are you excited? Let me ask this: like, are you excited for an Indiana Jones game by Machine Games, or would you like them to do something different?
No, this is like great. I'm really, really interested to see what they do with it. It's kind of like we've only really seen them do Wolfenstein, and they're really good at it. Like there's great cutscenes and stuff. Let's forget Wolfenstein Youngblood exists for a moment, because I'm pretty sure
I
that
want to
was just
forget
a
I
case
played
of
it. So
yeah, it's the worst game one of the worst games I've ever played this gen. But like it's kind of like Wolfenstein Youngblood kind of feels like it was the product of a boardroom meeting where they were like, "You've got to get your revenue up. Is there a game we can sort of mod and sell, even if it's garbage?" I kind of feel like that's where that game came from. I almost feel like that because Wolfenstein Youngblood was like the most lamest, laziest incarnation of Wolfenstein we've ever seen so far. I hate that game with a passion. But, whatever. I think that era of abusing their IP for short-term revenue bursts is over. I think that was much to do with ZeniMax corporate rather than, what they actually wanted to do. So I think we should see a change in the way they do things. We should see a return to the old Bethesda, I think. I don't think we'll see another Wolfenstein Youngblood sort of game anyway. But could be wrong.
So,
We'll have to wait and see.
what you're saying is you're expecting this Indiana Jones game to be single player and not a co-op games as a service title, essentially.
Yeah, I'm expecting it to be a single player experience. I'm expecting it to be good. I'm expecting it to not be a cash-in garbage. I'm expecting them to make good on the name of Indiana Jones. I think it's going to be awesome. I'm like really excited for it. But I think there is a chance it could be first person. I really do.
I mean, there's obviously you can't discount it. I'm just saying, in my mind, I'm imagining it as a third person game. Obviously, it could be first person, but if I had to guess, if I had to predict, if I had to say, I think it's going to be third person. Because I think they're going to want that iconic, his outfit with his hat. They're going to want you to see that during gameplay.
Yeah, maybe
you lose that in first person. So I don't know. I just kind of expect it to be that. But the other question of the two we need to get
maybe
to,
his hat like falls off and then you have to pick it back up.
Is when do you expect this game is out? Because I see some people thinking that it's their next game, when I honestly think this game is years away. To the point where I don't even know really why they announced it so early. Because to my knowledge, Wolfenstein 3, and I could be wrong, right? But to my knowledge, Wolfenstein 3 is pretty much done or close to being done with development. And that game will be either coming out this year or next year. And that this title, this Indiana Jones game, was their next project, which means it would go into full production probably sometime next year. And you're probably looking at 3-year development time. So you're looking at 2025, if I'm right.
I think it's obvious why they announced it. It's because Disney wanted some meat to announce with its Lucasfilm Games division, right?
Yeah, that's true.
What they didn't have a whole lot to announce otherwise. Like Ubisoft announced that Massive Games is making a Star Wars game. So like is it going to be the Division with Star Wars skin? I see a lot of people saying that.
Yes, 100% will be.
I am here for that, man. Because I tell you, I really kind of like the Division, the way it plays. I just don't like the setting so much, like the military sort of the realism. Like I like a bit of zombie in my apocalypse. You know what I mean? I like a bit of fantasy in my realism, and the Division and the Tom Clancy genre is just it always just feels bland to me because of how realistic it is. That's just a personal taste thing. I'm not saying it's bad if you like the Division or Tom Clancy stuff. I'm just saying like it's not for me. So like Star Wars is a far more interesting setting for a game like the Division. So I'm really hopeful that is the case when it comes to that game. But again, it's probably going to be years away because I know Ubisoft Massive is one of the studios that got pretty gutted with all the sort of drama at Ubisoft. A lot of people I know like were fired from Ubisoft Massive over all this sort of the misconduct stuff. It's just crazy. You think you know people, but do you actually know people? Yeah, I mean, even that game is probably years away. So Lucasfilm's Games just wanted to announce a couple of their titles, and it just happened to be these games, even if they're further out. Maybe also to spark some interest in other developers to maybe do licensed properties. Maybe.
But then, of course, that leads to the bigger question that everybody kind of talks about, which refers to everything we've been talking about Bethesda, and that's the talk of exclusivity. We still don't know what the exclusivity is for the Bethesda games. I've always felt that the vast majority of them will be exclusive. However, I feel this is one of those case-by-case basis titles that Phil talked about in his initial interview, where he said, like, they'll go by case-by-case basis and see. If I were to go and make a bet at Vegas right now, in my gut, like right now, my gut is telling me that this Indiana Jones game is multi-platform, that it'll be on PlayStation and I maybe Switch Pro or whatever next gen version of Switch will be out by 2025 or 2024. And I could be wrong because Disney, because Lucasfilm is Disney. They partnered up with Sony for Spider-Man, which was exclusive. They partnered up with Microsoft in the past to do exclusive games like Connect Star Wars and Disneyland Adventures and stuff like that. They partnered up with Nintendo to do Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, which was exclusive. So there's always a chance it could be. I don't know. Like I look at it and I say, I guess it really depends on when this deal was completed. If it was completed before the acquisition by Microsoft, then Lucasfilms was probably looking at Bethesda as a multi-platform publisher, just like they're looking at Ubisoft, of like, we're going to sign this deal with you, and this game is going to be out on everything. And I just kind of feel the same with this, honestly. Like I kind of feel that this game's going to be multi-platform, and I haven't talked to you about it. I did see your tweet, but have you kind of thought about it a little bit more?
No, I'm in the same camp as you. Like, I see a lot of people got mad at my tweet and they were like, "Well, Spider-Man's exclusive," and it's just kind of like, yeah, but Sony has unique leverage over the Spider-Man IP, and it's not the same situation. And I know it's Sony just own the publishing rights to the character for the films, but at the same time, licensing that IP would require sort of relationships that are already there, because Marvel, Disney, and Sony, they've already had all these negotiations over the character for Spider-Man and stuff like that. And maybe like Sony give them concessions over the movie rights for some movies if they give them exclusivity on the games. So it's really not the same situation. Like, everyone thinks, like, when it comes to these kind of IP deals, that everything's black and white. It's never white. There's always all sorts of leverage. There's always all sorts of shades of grey, things we don't hear about, things you wouldn't expect. You can put any kind of anything into a deal for an IP. Like, Microsoft could be like, yeah, if you give us this IP, we'll give you like free Office 365 for like a couple of years or something. Stuff like weird stuff like that. There's like no reason Microsoft couldn't leverage its cloud or other properties as part of a deal, like PlayFab or Azure or whatever. So there's always little things that go into it. But I think, like, for this IP specifically, Disney clearly was intentional in putting the Indiana Jones IP back out there. There's a new Indiana Jones movie coming. So, like, if you want to have the broadest audience possible, which is what you're doing really when you're licensing your IP to make a game, you kind of want it to hit as many platforms as possible. So I think, like, this is a game that will come out on multiple platforms. And I think Microsoft would love it to be exclusive. I'm sure they would, but it's kind of, at the same time, it's sort of like, how much money would they be willing to put into it to make sure to offset Disney's potential losses? And also, when you're using a licensed IP, the profits get split in multiple different directions. Like, MachineGames has to be paid, Microsoft has to be paid, and Disney has to be paid for licensing the IP. Who gets the where the royalties go in? What's the cut on the royalties? There's all sorts of weird stuff you have to take into consideration when it comes to stuff like that. And I don't think Microsoft would. It's not typically been in Microsoft's purview recently to license that kind of stuff on an exclusive basis. So I think, like, in my gut, I just feel like this game will be multi-platform. This will be one of the games that, like you say, meets that case by case basis sort of thing, and this game will be on everything. It's kind of like too big of an IP.
Well, okay, so here's what I was gonna say. You're wrong about the Spider-Man game. First off, Disney approached Sony to make a Spider-Man game. It has nothing to do with Sony's publishing rights for the movies. That is no bearing.
You don't know that. Have you seen the text?
I mean, Disney and Sony pretty much said that. I mean, publicly.
Yeah, but you don't know that. What I'm saying is that relationship was already there. I'm saying that relationship.
Sure, but what about What about
didn't
Disney's
approach-
relationship with Nintendo? That doesn't really exist, and they still got a Marvel exclusive. Like, look, I agree with your final assessment of it being multi-platform. There's some things like the whole Sony I guess what I was going to say is that Sony, and Marvel went to Sony for a game, obviously with the intent of it being exclusive. Because why else would you go to Sony? Sony's not going to make a game for anybody else. Marvel went to Nintendo.
I think it's also like it's not just that. It's also that Sony's kind of proven. They're proven that they can do this.
Well, it's not necessarily, but I mean, if you went to Sony and you're like, we want you to make this game, and Sony's like, okay, we'll ask Insomniac, and then we'll get back to you and be like, oh, and then Marvel's like, but also put it on Switch and PlayStation or Xbox. So you'd be like, well, then you go to somebody else, go to Activision, someone who actually publishes on multiple platforms. So obviously Marvel going to Sony to get a Spider-Man game is with the intent of it being exclusive to PlayStation. Same thing with Marvel going to Nintendo. Nintendo's not going to put any of their games on another platform. The thing was that this wasn't this deal, and I see people upset that we think it's multi-platform in the chat, which is fine. They went to Bethesda for this deal. They didn't go to Microsoft. Now, right, Microsoft will own Bethesda in a couple months, but they currently don't. So this all depends on when the deal closes. So they probably went to Bethesda because at the time, just like with Ubisoft and Star Wars, Bethesda was making multi-platform games. So now that's not to say that once the acquisition goes through, that Microsoft can't go and renegotiate the deal and try to make it exclusive for a bunch of money, right? They could probably do that. You know what? Hey, we would love to make Indiana Jones exclusive. Here's some money to make up for the lost sales on the PlayStation 5 or whatever. And I see a couple people saying Microsoft wouldn't, they're not going to let one of their studios work on a multi-platform game for years or, for an extended period of time. Here's the thing I'll say to that, right? You're Phil Spencer. You want to make a big splash. You need a whole bunch of different studios. Bethesda's up for sale. Now let's say someone else could essentially buy them or someone else is looking for them, right? And you have this chance to get all these studios and you look into what they're doing and you see their future. Phil obviously would have known about this deal with Lucasfilm's games. So the question then becomes, do you still make the deal if MachineGames is making a licensed game that is going to be on PS5 in 2025? Do you torpedo the whole deal because one of those teams is making one multi-platform game? No, of course not. You would still go through with it. Now, also think about this. Sony is about to publish MLB 2021 on everything. They're funding a team that is going to be making multi-platform releases every single year until they either shut down that studio or get out of the baseball business. Now, 3 years ago, that would seem absurd. Sony's never going to bankroll a studio that's going to put their games on other platforms, but they're essentially doing it with Sony San Diego. They're making the baseball game, and from this point on, it's going to be on every single platform. Licenses are tricky, and I think that's kind of what we're saying here is like you never know what the license holder wants out of that agreement. The license holder may say it could be exclusive. The license holder could be like, we want it on every platform possible to get as much money return as we possibly can. To say either way is ridiculous. So I think this is one of those games where you can look at, outside of Starfield, outside of the next Arcane game, where you sit there and be like, I think those can be exclusive, but when you look at a licensed product like this that already had an existing deal before Microsoft bought them, and we've already seen Microsoft honor existing deals with everybody they bought, whether it's, Obsidian with the Outer Worlds, or In Exile with Wasteland 3, or hell, even the Bethesda titles with the exclusive one-year arrangements with Ghostwire Tokyo and Deathloop. I mean, how awesome would it be to have those two games on Xbox this year? But still, Microsoft was like, we're going to honor that deal, that pre-existing condition that, we signed up for when we acquired Bethesda. We just got to bite the bullet on it. And if that's the case, if that's what Bethesda agreed to when they originally signed this deal, then you're damn right Indiana Jones will be on every platform that Lucasfilm wants it on. And if Microsoft wants to renegotiate to make it exclusive and it's going to cost them money, then that's something they could probably do too. Am I wrong on this, Jez? Or what?
Nope. No, you're completely right. I don't know why anyone would disagree with it. It's like you have to look beyond your feelings. If you want every single, Bethesda game to go exclusive, it's just not going to happen. Such a huge company, it was they literally said it's going to be a case by case basis. And when they talk about case by case basis, they're talking about Fallout 76 expansions, Elder Scrolls Online expansions, and these pre-existing deals. Like, there's no way, in my mind, that this game will ever be exclusive. Microsoft would have to pay Disney a lot of money to get out of that contract, and I don't think they'll do it. I think they'll just let it go multi-platform, and Microsoft will get a cut of all the sales on PlayStation, and then the next game that Machine Games make, Wolfenstein 4 or whatever, that'll be exclusive. But this game ain't going to be exclusive.
Well, so there was no platforms announced in this announcement, right? So there was no Xbox, was no PlayStation, and I know some people, and I've said this in my video about it, like all the major Xbox accounts tweeted about it. Phil Spencer, it was announced on his birthday. Major Nelson tweeted about it. The official Xbox account tweeted about it, and PlayStation said nothing. Now, a lot of people look at that and say, hey, that could be a sign that PlayStation knows the game's not coming to its platform, so they're not going to retweet it. Fair enough. That could essentially be the case. But then again, maybe Sony doesn't want to retweet their competitor's newest edition. But then again, Ubisoft also announced a Star Wars game. And it was interesting to see the reactions to that, too, because I looked... and all the Xbox accounts, well, not all of them, like Phil didn't tweet about it, but Xbox tweeted about the whole Star Wars stuff. And you know who didn't? PlayStation. PlayStation didn't say a word about the new Ubisoft Star Wars game. So they didn't say anything about the Bethesda game, and they didn't say anything about the Ubisoft game. Does that mean the Ubisoft Star Wars game is exclusive to Xbox because PlayStation didn't tweet about it? Of course not. You wouldn't make that argument. So the whole idea of PlayStation not tweeting about it isn't conclusive proof either way about anything. And this is why it's going to be important for Phil and his teams, whenever the deal goes through, to be really transparent about their plans with Bethesda. Because if they don't come out and say, hey, X, Y, and Z is exclusive, but B isn't, then it's just that question is going to haunt them. Every single time there's going to be a new Bethesda game announced, people are going to wonder what's the exclusivity of it, right? Like we are here. We're talking about Indiana Jones, a licensed game, and half the chat's like, of course it's multi-plat, and then the other half is like, this is stupid. It has to be exclusive, And it's just like, this is one of the things Microsoft needs to address: is what are they planning on doing with Bethesda? Are the games going to be exclusive to Game Pass platforms, or are the games going to be multi-platform? And, me and Jez have said it repeatedly. We both think they'll be exclusive, for the vast majority of them. And I honestly think this Indiana Jones game is literally Phil's case-by-case basis. He said case-by-case, and you can look at this title and be like, you know what? Yeah, this game's multi-platform. I don't know. Like I said, if I was gonna go to Vegas and I was gonna bet on this, I would bet on being multi-platform. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the game is going to be exclusive. I personally just don't see it. So
yeah, I mean, it'll be on Game Pass.
Yeah. That'll be the difference is like you have to pay $70 for it on PlayStation and $6 free with Game Pass on Xbox. So Funchito says more visual novels on Xbox, please. Could fit well with Game Pass on mobile and bring more Japanese content. Also, I want Jez to unleash his waifu power. Yeah, you tweeted that. Hey, would you still follow me if I was a waifu thing? Dead Planet says, not saying it's exactly apples to apples, but when the company I work for got bought, there were plenty of changes made prior to sale. I don't buy that Microsoft has no say in anything right now. Well, I mean, if you listen to Phil and you take his word, he says they haven't had any discussions about Bethesda's future because legally they can't do that. They can't they can't affect Bethesda's choice because there's what Bethesda does, because there's always the chance that the deal falls through. And if Microsoft is dictating what Bethesda does now before the sale goes through, then and the sale dies, then that could negatively affect Bethesda. So yeah, I mean, like I said, it's certainly possible Microsoft makes it exclusive after they own Bethesda, and they can sit down with Lucasfilms and negotiate the game to be an exclusive. Maybe the game was... See, I'm under the assumption that this deal was made before the acquisition. Maybe this deal was made while the acquisition was going on, and it's with the intent that the game was to be exclusive to Xbox. You know what I mean, Jez? Like, I think the idea is, how long has this deal been in place? Was it before, or was it during? Because if it was during, and Lucasfilms is, negotiating with them, and they already know that Bethesda is bought by Xbox, maybe with that in mind, it's just they expect it only to be on Xbox. That's the problem with all this, and it's just who knows at this point. But that's my honest to God gut reaction was, yeah, it's multi-platform. And we'll see. I don't know when we'll even find out about it, because I don't expect to see them, the Indiana Jones, another trailer for years. I think this year we'll see an announcement of Wolfenstein 3, and whether or not it releases this year is up to be determined. But I don't think we see the Indiana Jones game, and I don't think they talk about it for a couple years again, especially if it's that far out.
Yeah, I think we won't hear from that for a while.
That
was all about Lucasfilm wanting to reveal itself.
Sure, 100%. Tharsman says, "Isn't it likely that it was Bethesda that went to Disney to request a license, knowing about the MS deal, and Disney liked the proposal?"
I don't think so. I mean, it's kind of... I mean, we don't know for sure how these sort of deals come about, but Disney's previous stance on gaming was, we don't want to be in gaming. They literally shut down their gaming division and licensed Star Wars off to EA because they didn't want to be in gaming. And EA was supposed to prove to them that there was something there, but as we all know what happened there, EA, you could argue that EA pretty much screwed it up. But yeah, I did have some good wins, towards the end of it. Star Wars Battlefront 2, they actually had server queues over the weekend. Did you see this, Rand? Star Wars Battlefront 2 is still really popular, even though it launched to a total disaster. EA really turned it around, to their credit. And the game's been abandoned now, for updates, but it turned into a really good game with tons of cool content, and loads of people still play it. Star Wars Squadrons is pretty good. Not amazing, but if you're into those sorts of games, a lot of people do like it. And then of course Jedi Fallen Order was pretty good. But for the most part, Disney just screwed it up. We had two projects cancelled, studios shut down, melted, and collapsed under the weight of what they're trying to do. But Disney just didn't want to be in gaming, so it's kind of I think this whole sort of initiative was Disney shopping around, because it's no coincidence that both Ubisoft and Bethesda... It would have been too big of a coincidence, rather, that both Ubisoft and Bethesda both landed IP deals with Disney at the same time. This is Disney thinking oh, well, if everyone's going to be stuck at home, we might as well, try and do something with this whole gaming thing, considering that our parks are closed and that we've lost tons of revenue on physical experiences. We need to be looking at this gaming thing more seriously, because gaming is recession proof. It's proven it time and time again. So My thinking is that this is Disney spearheading it, and
Yeah.
Bethesda was Machine Games was there at the right time, the right moment to take advantage.
And they were obviously looking for whatever their next game was going to be, and they all probably liked Indiana Jones. And yeah, Jericho Jackson says MLB made Sony make the show multiplatter. They would have lost the license. I mean, who knows how the licensing deal works for that? But Sony could have said no and been like, you know what, it's not worth it anymore. But they decided, you know what, we're just going to have to put this baseball game on every single platform. And if they didn't think it was worth it, they would have just not made the baseball game anymore. And I know there's like people have said, hey, well, that San Diego studio is working on a new IP, but that's a different studio. That's that secret Sony San Diego studio that hasn't been announced yet. That is supposedly working on Uncharted 5 or whatever the rumor is. That's not this baseball studio. This baseball studio literally is made to only make baseball. Now, I guess you could make the argument that if Sony told them, know what, we're not making a baseball game anymore and we don't want to use the license anymore because we don't want to put this game on Xbox and Nintendo, they probably would have to shut that studio down. Because that studio's been making literally only baseball for, 12, 15 years now? They probably would have to shut it down. So I don't know. The whole licensing arrangement is just, it's complicated, and that's why I personally think this game is multiplat, and why I think all their other games are going to be exclusive. But we won't know until they tell us differently. Like if they would have said during this trailer that it was just the Xbox platforms, like we would have our answer. Like they didn't even say what platforms it could become. For all we know, the game could be coming to the Switch Pro, right? Because we don't even know what platforms it's announced for at this point.
Man, I swear to God, if the Switch Pro isn't backwards compatible with the Switch game library, I'm never ever buying Nintendo stuff ever again. As long as I won't do it. I'm done. I am going to be done.
You're going to be done if what?
I'm going to be done with Nintendo if the Nintendo Switch Pro isn't backwards compatible with the games that I bought on Switch. I'm never investing in Nintendo ever again. Okay, thanks, bye.
Lydia says, hey, Jeff got one, Jez got one, but Brad didn't get a Series X. Jez, tell us the tales about tech journalism, free stuff, and jumping through hoops.
Jumping through hoops?
I guess.
I didn't really have to jump through any hoops. Man, it's a case of how much traffic websites get, isn't it, really? Like Windows Central is a pretty damn big website. If I was writing for a smaller website like i6m back in the day, i6m used to get 1 million hits a month. Windows Central gets about 15 million hits a month. So like if I hadn't the audience that I've got now on Twitter and then I went to write for i6m, there's no way I would have got a free console, because it's not like I wouldn't have had such a big audience to leverage my thoughts against, So, and VentureBeat's obviously huge. So it's just based on the size of your audience, really. I know Brad has a pretty big audience, but I don't think therot.com is as big with gaming, at least. But I don't know. You'll have to ask Brad,
Jez, tell me about the times you've had to jump through hoops, though.
Oh, what hoops?
I don't know. I don't know.
The hoops. I don't jump through hoops, man. Like, I'm kind of lazy. Like, and if I have to jump through hoops to do something or get something, then I won't do it. But I will say that last year I was often stressed out on behalf of my team that we wouldn't get certain review codes and stuff like that, just because it's going to make the whole team's job harder. Like, and if you don't get a review code a week in advance of launch and maybe you get it on the day, then someone's going to lose a load of sleep that night, But this year I'm kind of like, I've said to myself, I'm not going to stress out so much. If things happen, great. If they don't, who cares? just move on to the next thing, because I don't know. You just sort of have to take the good with the bad, really, and it is interesting to think about. I think what he's talking about is like there's been some discourse lately about, especially about Cyberpunk, what kind of outlets qualify for review codes and stuff like that. And I don't know if you remember the review program for the Phantom Pain, Metal Gear Solid 5.
Yeah, where
Right.
they had to like play it at a hotel, essentially.
Yeah. So like the review program for Phantom Pain was so weird. Like Konami really wanted a lot of control over the journalists who were playing that game. And like we weren't invited to review that game for whatever reason. I don't know. So my review was 2 weeks late for the Phantom Pain. I have no idea what the criteria is for Konami to give those review codes out, because obviously we had a bigger audience than a lot of other game journalists out there. Is it because I was critical of Konami on Twitter? Is it because like I wrote an editorial scathing Konami for the handling of what happened to Kojima and stuff like that? I don't know. Like I think it's interesting to talk about and think about like how different PR firms work, but I've never been on that side. I've never been on the PR side, and PR people guard their secrets very closely. So I literally don't know. But what I do know, Rand, Microsoft has a file on you and a file on me.
What?
Yeah, they have files.
They have a file on me? What?
Yeah, they do. They have a file on me too, and most journalists and most tech tubers and stuff like that, YouTubers. The PR keep files and intel and and profile us to figure out like what kind of I don't know what it's for, but I know they have files on us.
There's no way there's no way Microsoft as a company, Xbox as a division has a file about Randall Chop Liver 19.
Not Xbox, but like Assembly, who does their PR. They have a file.
I've never been contacted by Assembly in my life.
Never?
Nope.
Well, still, they have a file on you, man.
I doubt it. I doubt Assembly even knows who I am. Other people might at Xbox. I mean, some people at Xbox know who I am, but I don't think in someone's filing cabinet or file on their computer is there one that says Randall Thor 19 on it. I doubt that very much.
I'm gonna try and find out if they have a file on you now. I'm pretty sure they do, especially after your Crackdown stuff a couple of years ago.
Yeah, sure.
You're filed under mean journalist.
Well, probably. As you would say, I'm not a journalist though. So.
No, that's what you say. I consider you to be a journalist.
I don't consider
Randall journalist.
I just don't think there's a file on me. I don't know what it would say. He makes clickbait videos.
Yeah, maybe.
Randall Thor 19 makes clickbait YouTube videos. Talks about Xbox. Speculates on the future, right? What was I gonna say? About the
we went off the rails a bit there.
Yeah, we did go off the rails there. So where were we? Like we were on the Indiana Jones MachineGames thing, because this whole thing kind of it flows back into the whole Bethesda discussion. I guess on a side note for this, a lot of people remember when Microsoft bought Bethesda, people were like, "Oh, this could mean Obsidian could work on a New Vegas 2, right?" But now that Lucasfilm's Games is back around, and it seems like they're willing to give out IPs, right? Because clearly the EA Star Wars exclusive deal is over, right? We have Ubisoft Massive making a Star Wars game. They're the makers of Division, which, sorry to say, but it sounds like Division 3 ain't going to happen. And if it does happen, it's not going to happen for quite some time, because they're working on an Avatar game, and now they're working on this Star Wars game, which sounds cool. Like, I do like Star Wars. I mean, part of me is like, man, I wonder if they could make like a Mandalorian. Like that's the Star Wars game. You're like Mando, because like the television show The Mandalorian is almost laid out like a video game. You know, he's going from planet to planet, quest to quest, doing side quests, leveling up his armor, getting better gear, all that type of stuff. So like, what if like Ubisoft Star Wars game is an open world Mandalorian game or something like that? But I'm gonna tie this back into Xbox because now that we know Lucasfilms is licensing out IP again, what if Microsoft, or what if Obsidian through Microsoft went to them and was like, Obsidian would like to work on Knights of the Old Republic 3. You know what I mean?
Be a dream.
That'd
be a dream, but dude, do we know for sure that it's not EA who owns the publishing rights to that specific Disney brand? Because they might do.
To what, like that they are the only ones who could make a Knights of the Republic?
Yeah, I mean it's certainly possible.
It's possible
because they had to go to EA to get the rights for the backwards compatible versions, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you're right. I'm just kind of like spitballing and seeing like, I guess the question then is, what, like for anybody in chat, it's like, okay, here's Obsidian. Would you like them to make new IP like Avowed and continue on with a new IP that they introduced last gen with the Outer Worlds 2? Or if somehow they were able to work on Fallout New Vegas or potentially KOTOR 3, would you like to see them scrap one of those games? Well, they're obviously not scrapping Avowed because I think Avowed comes out next year. But, you know, if they're pre-production on Outer Worlds 2, would you want them to completely scrap Outer Worlds 2 to go work on New Vegas 3 or potentially a Lucasfilms IP? Right? Because there's always that discussion in the video game circles about new IP versus sequels versus licenses. And when people say, hey, like there are some people that were disappointed that the initiative, that their game is Perfect Dark, right? That they wanted a new IP. Like you hear it all the time. Some people who are Perfect Dark fans are really excited that Perfect Dark is back. Personally, like since we don't get a lot of Splinter Cell like games, I'm excited for their take on Perfect Dark, considering, you know, what you said previously about it being very much Splinter Cell like. But I understand people's disappointment at being like, really? This brand new studio that you built from the ground up and you're bringing back an old franchise? Like, why not make something new? And then, you know, you get to the people with Obsidian and they're like, yeah, Outer Worlds, yeah, Vow, new IP, that's what we want. But then you hear those same people being like, no, do KOTOR now, you know, or do New Vegas 2, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes with gamers, I don't know, sometimes I feel like a lot of people don't know what they want until they're given it. Like they'll say one thing and then they'll get something else and they'll be like, oh, this is exactly what I wanted, right?
Yep. That's why I said before, Microsoft should worry less about data and just do things, you know.
So we have a special Ed in chat, our buddy from the Xbox era. Make sure you guys go check out their podcast. He says Microsoft are definitely getting involved in Lucas talks. And is that in regards to them talking to Lucasfilms about Indiana Jones and potentially getting exclusive? Or is this about getting another IP for one of their other studios to work on? That'd be interesting. Could it be like, hey, you know what? What if the Coalition, instead of, you know, doing Gear 6, what if they did an IP? But then would you really want to license IP instead of something that you own? Wasn't that some of the drawbacks to what happened with WB Games that we talked about, you talked about, Jez, where one of the reasons why the deal died was because they couldn't agree on certain things with IP streaming and stuff like that?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't heard anything specifically about Disney and Microsoft, but it's interesting to think about, especially given some of the previous discussions we've had about what the Coalition should do, right? Like, could the Coalition, are there any IP under Disney's banner that would fit the Coalition's game delivery style, you know? I don't know. Could the coalition be the ones to make a Mando game, third-person shooter? I don't know.
See,
That's interesting.
Special Ed says other IP, so not tied to Indiana Jones. So
that this thing about the Star Wars IP is that like Indiana Jones is very much Indiana Jones, but the Star Wars IP
is massive.
When you look at like the Clone Wars, the Mandalorian, it's so huge, it's so vast. They could do literally anything. They could do a game focused on the Jedi. Could do a game focused on Mandalorian bounty hunters. They could do a game focused on pod racing, for God's sake. Like I would love. I don't like racing games, but man, I would be all over a sort of Wipeout F-Zero style pod racing game. I'd be so down for that. There's just loads of stuff they could do. What if like after Forza Horizon 5, that team goes on and makes the best pod racing game ever you can imagine? You know, it's just so much stuff they could do with it, like the actual space battles and you know, there's just so much stuff they could do. So if Disney are opening Pandora's box when it comes to Star Wars games, it literally sky's the limit. If like any of Microsoft Studios is kind of like, man, we want to license this. Microsoft, here's our pitch, blah blah blah. Like any of the studios, really. I mean,
yeah, and that's where
so much you could do.
that's where then you'd be negotiating with Microsoft, probably with the intent that the game would be exclusive, just like Marvel negotiated with Sony about Spider-Man and negotiated with Nintendo about Marvel Ultimate Alliance.
Like, what if like after Age of Empires 4, World's Edge pitches like, I don't know, Star Wars RTS, where it's like space battles, positioning the fleets and stuff like that. There's so much they could do. It's exciting to think about.
Very much so. That's Sir Noob says, rumors Microsoft is going to buy another studio. What do you think it is? I personally think it's Asobo. We're going to talk about that in just 1 second. And Drunken Ninja says, I think Xbox should go for a Marvel exclusive. They have so many studios now that they can make a Punisher game, for example. People have been saying that ever since Sony struck the deal with Marvel for Spider-Man. And you know, obviously Marvel Ultimate Alliance with Nintendo. People are like, well, what about Xbox getting a Marvel game? Like, what if they had an exclusive Hulk game, which they actually did during the 360 era, like Incredible Hulk, Incredible Destruction, I think was exclusive to the Xbox, or maybe that was during the OG Xbox. Either way, I think they did have an exclusive Marvel game then. I mean, I would love to see a Wolverine game. I remember playing the Wolverine, the one that's based off the movie that Raven Software did, and it's one of the best movie licensed games I've ever played. Like, that was incredible. Like, I would love a Wolverine game. Obviously, some people will be like, well, I want a Black Panther game, or I want a Doctor Strange game. Like, what if Remedy made like a Doctor Strange game, right? You know, and that's our thing. Like, well, Xbox needs more teams, so this kind of ties into them buying new studios. Like, and I linked this to you before, Jez. We started talking on the show. Was Brad Sams in one of his new videos? You know, your buddy Brad Sams. Which didn't you tweeted him and you were like, well, tell me everything you know about Xbox 1, 2, and then he said, you know, Xbox is going to bring the fire or whatever in 2021. Which you know, it's funny, going on different forums, people thought you and him were leaking something with those tweets. Can you confirm or deny that was a coordinated attack between you and Brad, that you were leaking something, or for was it just you guys just having fun on Twitter?
Don't know, man.
Interesting.
Don't know.
So he basically said that, to no one's surprise really, that, you know, Google and Amazon and Microsoft are looking into making more acquisitions, that there's a lot of money flowing around right now in the video game market. People say it's a seller's market, where like right now is maybe the highest you're ever going to get for your studio if you're looking to sell, right? Because it's been proven, the video game market, extremely resilient. In fact, it grew during the pandemic, unlike a lot of other industries, right? People love video games, and they love them even more during a pandemic because they need stuff to do. So he says Microsoft, Google, and Amazon, and let's be honest, Google and Amazon need to buy somebody, especially Google. Stadia, they need to buy something. Amazon as well. Although Amazon, I think, is going to be, even if Amazon did buy somebody, like hypothetically, Amazon buys Capcom. Hypothetically, not saying it's happened. Not. I know you said you had a nightmare that Google bought Capcom, which would be a nightmare because they would keep that exclusive. I think if Amazon bought somebody like Capcom, for instance, I still think Amazon would actually keep those games multi-platform.
Yeah, maybe they're retail minded at the end of the day.
Whereas if Google bought Capcom, well then your Resident Evils, your Street Fighters would only be on Stadia. However, he also said that Sony's looking, but not as fiercely as the other three, and that he, particularly Brad, knows of three. I think he said three studios or three deals that are currently in the talks. So people are wondering like who is it? I don't know. Do you have any like guesses of who they could be talking about? I mean, it's really
I have no information on this, so these would just be purely guesses. But Asobo has to be one after the success of Microsoft Flight Simulator, and they're a very versatile dev, and Microsoft Flight Simulator is a huge success story. So, but I also feel like Microsoft wants to go big and broad. Bethesda is pretty broad. And it means they get like a pile of content for Game Pass. So like I think like some of the smaller publishers could be on the table. When it comes to bigger publishers, it's harder to keep that a secret because regulators have to be involved, people have to be notified, shareholders have to be notified, blah 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 blah. Especially if it's a publicly traded company, then it gets even more complicated. You have to buy all the shares out, blah, blah, blah. Board of directors have to be involved. Harder to keep that stuff a secret. So if what Brad knows, if Brad knows about a few studios, I would have to guess that those are indie studios, because if they were bigger publishers, we'd already know already, I think. I genuinely think that. So let's assume Asobo is one of them. And then you've got like basically either two smaller independent publishers or two indie firms. That would be easier to keep a secret. So I don't know. What do you think? Asobo is like the only one I can really think of off the top of my head.
I don't know, man. Like it's very much. Who knows at this point? I think Google needs to make a splash, and I can't see them being like, well, we're buying Bloober, and that's good enough for us. You know what I mean? So, like, I think
what studio that made your favorite game of 2020, Battletoads?
Dallas Studios? I don't really think anybody wants to buy them. I thought you were going to say Moon Studios, but Moon's been pretty upfront about their desire not to get bought out yet, at least, and they do have...
I don't think Microsoft will buy Moon.
No, I mean I don't think so either. But I'm saying like somebody else could. But they I mean they've said that they have no desire to get bought out yet, and their next game is being published by Epic, or is it? I forget who it's being published by. Either way, I think WB Games. I wouldn't be surprised if WB Games is back in play.
Maybe.
They have
that's a ton. Like that's another thing. Like they could buy the subdivision of another company.
But, like you think about it, like Google and Amazon probably both need publishing firms that they don't have. Yeah. You buy WB Games and you get your publishing firm. But then like that would also force Microsoft and Phil to probably step in and also see what's what, and especially like. If you were to, just say hypothetically Ubisoft was on the table, and Phil goes to Satya and is like, listen, like this huge publisher is on the table and Google or Amazon or Tencent's about to purchase them. Like we need to step in and get one of these. We can't allow Amazon or Google to get a foothold into the video game market. Like we need to consolidate ours and make our portfolio and studios even stronger. Then that's something that he could probably push.
So Ubisoft is like just taking that's a bad example because
Well, I'm just saying it. Like Square Enix, something like Samuel Tolbert in chat. What up, Sam? Square Enix, right? Because there definitely seems like something's going on with Square. Like I'm not sure Final Fantasy VII Remake's coming out on Xbox anymore, and they've already been kind of like they haven't put all their Final Fantasy games on Game Pass. Remember how they said that there's still like Final Fantasy, I think 10, and all the 360 games and. I forget the other one, right? Like, they're not there yet. Final Fantasy 14, which Phil said he was working on and was going to come, still nothing from that. Final Fantasy 16 exclusive. Final Fantasy, or the Project Agata game, a 2-year exclusivity. Like, something's up with Square Enix, where to the point where I wouldn't be shocked if Final Fantasy 7 Remake skips Xbox completely. But, like, let's just use that. Like, if somebody was going to buy Square Enix, Phil would have to step in potentially. Probably not for Square though, because I don't really think they have the best of relationships. But you know what I'm trying to say, right? Not. I just use Ubisoft because they're I don't. EA is not looking to sell. I don't think. Take-Two is probably too expensive. But like someone like Ubisoft. You could potentially see happening. And
Ubisoft wouldn't, if it was Ubisoft, that'd play out very publicly in the public eye. Like we saw what happened with I can't even remember the name now. That was it Gameloft? No, not Gameloft. I can't remember. That Vivendi tried to, was it Vivendi? Some company in France tried to muscle in and do a hostile takeover of Ubisoft. By buying up loads of shares. Do you remember this?
Yes, I remember. Yep.
And Ubisoft resisted it and bought shares back and fought them off. They were like, we don't want you. Blah 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 blah. So like, I think if Microsoft was looking to get in on Ubisoft, it'd play it very publicly, and we'd all know about it. But I presume but who knows? It's like it could go either way. It could eventually get to a point where the Guillermo family want to sell. Then maybe they don't want to, they want to exit, and they think like now's the time to do it. So I think that's something that could definitely, possibly, maybe happen down the line. But I think like if it was happening soon, we'd know about it already.
So you think you essentially are saying these are going to be small acquisitions. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Sony bought Bluepoint after the successor Demon's Souls, or even buy House Marquee after they see how Returnal performs. I could see Sony doing that.
I think Bluepoint's definite for Sony. It just makes sense. And there's so much stuff in Sony's back catalog that Bluepoint would crush, because they just seem to be.
Well, they also want to make their own new IP. I don't think they want to be. Yeah, I don't think they want to keep on making remakes for all time. They want to make their own game. Sure. And I got to give a big shout out to the Iron Lords podcast, one of my favorite podcasts that I actually do watch every single week. One of the few. They say salute to the Xbox 2, Lord Rand and Lord Jez, always bringing the premium content. Keep up the great work. And that's from Lord Cognito. Thank you, brother. Hope you're having a great day not watching your 49ers play today. Oh, wait. No, the Bears aren't playing either. Never mind. So, yeah, I don't know. Like, I've always said I felt Microsoft would make more acquisitions after the Bethesda deal went through. I think they're really, really focused on that happening. And I think it's going to happen sooner. I think it's going to happen in February, no later than March. I think it goes through. I think we get better clarification on what Microsoft's plans is with Bethesda. And after that, I mean, Phil and Satya already talked about them looking to grow, inorganically. And Google and Amazon, they're looking too. Like the big tech companies want in on the video game industry, especially after what happened with the pandemic, where everybody's profits and revenue just blew through the roof because everybody was playing video games. I think people look at it and it's like, okay, this is a secure market, and this is something we need to get in on. Now, I'm not saying a company like Ubisoft is going to get. I was just using them as an example. I know they have a ton of employees, but what about Bungie, Jez? Right? Bungie looking for more partners for the next game. I mean, we were pretty confident that Microsoft, talked to them about being acquired, right? Who's to say that?
Yeah, I think that. Yeah.
Who's to say that Google or Amazon doesn't come a knocking on their door, or Tencent?
I think we'll see Bungie sell at some point in the near future. I don't think it'd be Microsoft though. I think it'll be like Tencent or Amazon or Google. They're like.
Can you imagine if Bungie got bought out by Google? Jesus.
Bungie has a very specific number in mind that he wants to sell for, and from what I understand, they're having difficulty proving that they're worth as much as they think they're worth. That's that's my understanding of the situation. But there could be a publisher out there with more money than sense. Like Amazon clearly seem to have more money than sense a lot of the time. But who knows? Who knows, pal? I certainly don't. But it is an interesting time. Like, it's almost like I'm worried about what games we're gonna lose. Like, if Capcom does get bought out by your Googles or your Amazons, does that mean we just don't get Monsanto or Resident Evil anymore? That would be devastating. And stuff like that. Do I have to play those games on an app via streaming now?
I think that depends on who bought them. Like, if Amazon bought them, I think you still play it. But if Google bought them, no, I think you'd have to get Stadia.
Yeah.
Big Milo says, "Do you think Beyond Good and Evil is still in development at Ubisoft?" I mean, they haven't said it's canceled yet, right? So, although it's been a couple years. Gaming Addict, what up, Addict? He says, "Watching you, Jez." I don't know what that means. He's watching you. And let's see what else. He says he's watching you, Jez. Addict.
Who is?
Gaming Addict.
Oh, okay.
Do you know who Addict is?
Enough.
Isn't he? Is
that Lord Addict?
Yeah, Lord Addict.
Yeah, there's a few addicts.
Oh, okay. Yes, he's watching you. Finchito says, not a game studio, but could Microsoft be interested in buying Discord? Very popular, high monthly active users, cross-chat, better perception from gamers than Skype. That's always kind of been a topic, Microsoft buying Discord, right?
Microsoft's tried to buy Discord many times. Everyone has tried to buy Discord. But I think Discord wants to go public. I think Discord sort of announced a bunch of intentions for 2021. One of those intentions is to diversify the Discord brand so that businesses can use it and stuff like that. So like you'll see Discord come out with like a bunch of new products this year that are more business oriented and more family oriented, maybe, because a lot of businesses are realizing they don't need to pay for Slack because Discord offers it for free, a lot of the stuff that they need. So when Discord was down, Slack was down over Christmas. A lot of businesses tried out Discord as a backup, and they were like, "Hang on a sec, this has all the same features as Slack, but it's free." So I think Discord may just not sell. I think they'll go public, personally. So yeah, look out for that IPO next year or the year after.
Hold on, I'm just typing a message. Anyways, I mean, someone brought up a good point in chat. How does Discord even make money? And that's one of the things I've always thought was like, they had that, didn't they have a marketplace where people could buy games, but I think they shut that down because nobody bought it. And I can't imagine these server boosting things are you know, the what do they call it? Like Discord Nitro? Like the Nitro thing? I can't imagine they're selling like hotcakes. So I do wonder where the profitability is for something like Discord. Like if somebody were to buy it, like how do you make money off of that? You know what I mean? Even though, yeah, they do have a high monthly active users, but like what's their revenue like? I wonder. Are they public? I think Discord's public, right? Or are they not public yet? I'm not sure.
No. That's exactly what I was saying. Like Discord wants to. I think Discord wants to go public. They're private right now, but I think they want to go public. I think they want to make a business package. They want to make business solutions and get funding and then go public. I think, but I don't know. We'll see.
Either way, I'm gonna talk about delays here, Jez. Hogwarts, you know the Hogwarts game, Hogwarts Legacy, that was revealed at the Sony show back in June. That game was supposed to come out this year. That game got delayed all the way to 2022 already. And
What Hogwarts?
the Harry Potter game from Avalanche Studio. Do you remember?
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, so that game got delayed, and Riders Republic got delayed, which was the Ubisoft game, which is supposed to come out next month, and it got delayed, and now it doesn't have a release date. So, I guess the question is, how many delays for games in 2021 are you expecting? Because I'm expecting a lot.
Yeah, I think this is going to be the year of delays. I think this is the year that all the COVID stuff's really going to catch up. And like we even got delays from games that were like nearing the end of development last year. So for games that were like deep in development, we're gonna see like a huge wave of delays, I think. Which is like, Cyberpunk delaying the next gen patch all the way to the end of the year. I won't be surprised if that gets delayed again. Because let's face it, pandemic's nowhere near over, Like Britain's rolling out the vaccine as fast as it can, but like a lot of countries don't even have a vaccine yet. Germany hasn't approved half the vaccines. It is what it is. And game development is impacted heavily by having to work from home, especially if the studio's not set up for it. And a lot of game development is all about communication, isn't it? And you lose a lot of that nuance when you're connecting over Microsoft Teams or Slack or whatever. So I expect this year to be full of game delays. It's gonna suck, but it's just reality. It's the reality we live in.
Yeah, I'm expecting a lot of delays. What if Halo slips to 2022, Jez? How would that? Because November is a hop, skip, and a jump away from 2022. If the campaign isn't up to par, because I think the multiplayer is pretty much finished, or as finished as it could be. They probably still need to do some stress testing of the servers, but I think the multiplayer of Halo Infinite has been done, and that's why there was talk about them releasing the multiplayer before the campaign, because I think it's the campaign. Even though, what's his face, Joseph Staten said that he played the campaign fully to completion twice. Might be content complete, but they still got a lot of work to do on it. Whereas, I think the multiplayer, considering it was two separate teams, campaign multiplayer, I think the multiplayer has been pretty close. They just need to stress test the servers and some betas, and they're probably good to go. They probably could have released the multiplayer, and, they probably could have released the multiplayer this past at launch of the consoles, and they probably could release it maybe even sometime in May. But I think they want to release it as one product, so they got to hold off and wait until the campaign's finished. Face says, "Hey, when it comes to Square Enix or Capcom, I think Sony has a better chance of buying those publishers than anyone else." It's just easier for Sony to buy exclusivity for Square Enix games than actually buying Square Enix. Because I think to buy Square Enix, it would cost quite a pretty penny. And I think Sony is just looking for smaller additions. I think Sony feels pretty good with their studios and what they have. And, they probably feel a couple smaller additions and they'll be good. I don't think they want to spend the money on buying an entire publisher like Square Enix. They're probably just very happy paying the X amount of money it would to just get an exclusive. Why buy the publisher when you can just buy the exclusivity of the games? Yeah. Because you buy the publisher, Square Enix is publicly traded. You're gonna have to pay pay out the ass. And who are you really competing with in that regard? Yourself. So I don't know. Capcom? I wouldn't say that. I think me and Jez have talked about this before. There was that rumor where Microsoft almost did purchase Capcom a few years ago. So I don't think Capcom wants to sell anyways. They're in a pretty good spot at this point. Now, of course, you say that, and here comes Amazon with the buckload of cash, or Google, and maybe that changes their mind. And maybe like the people that run the company or the stockholders are like, yeah, give us our money. This is the most we'll ever get. So I don't know. I think Sony's just like, you know what? We're fine giving out exclusivity on your titles, but we don't want to buy you because that's just way too much money.
Yeah, there's a lot of I don't know, hype about acquisitions right now because of Microsoft going crazy with it. But it's also kind of like you got to look at what's realistic, what the shareholders want, what the regulations look like. Like Microsoft buying Capcom, for example, it comes with a huge amount of problems, logistically and otherwise. But Microsoft's presence in Japan is so minuscule. It's complicated, But a lot of this is just speculation right now. I think, just to round it off, I think the studios Brad's talking about are probably smaller, like a Sobo. I think Microsoft probably would buy another publisher if, the right one came around. I often wonder if Microsoft would buy someone like Paradox or, a PC-oriented one, because I think one place where Game Pass is struggling right now is PC. I think the domination of Steam, like the fact that Sea of Thieves was on the Steam charts all summer at full price, despite the fact people could get it in Game Pass. That says to me that Game Pass is not that popular on PC yet. So if I was Microsoft, maybe my acquisitions would revolve a little bit more around PC gamers in the near term. I don't know.
People don't want to hear that though, Jazz.
They don't want to hear that, but
maybe Microsoft should just buy Steam and put Game Pass on Steam. That would solve their problem, right?
Phil just walked into but how do you buy Steam? Like Gabe Newell but Gabe Newell is already like a billionaire.
Yeah.
Like there's literally he doesn't need money. Like what could you possibly give him? Like a dinosaur or something?
I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying that would solve a lot of their PC problems. You know what? We have this problem with PC. Nobody wants to use the Windows Store. Screw it. We just bought Steam. Now we own PC. That solves their problem right then and there.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure Microsoft would buy Steam, but it's about if they can offer something more tangible than money, I suppose Microsoft's really the only partner that makes sense for Steam's.
And Valve is a privately held company. So those are talks that could stay private. What if Google was like, by the way, guys, we bought Steam, and now it's only streaming only?
Yeah, that'd be really fun.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens there. Cyberpunk, Jez. Very interesting. They released an apology video earlier in the week where I watched it and I'm like, okay, typical PR video. You talk about like how your game is very like, oh my god, our game is so huge and so big and all this stuff, and then they're like, we didn't know. Like, I was watching that video and I get the sense that they just they just threw QA under the bus because they were like, we didn't know the problems that this game had on other on the old gen or whatever. And I was just like, I don't know about that. And then he talks about, hey, the free DLC is coming and they're working on the game, yada, yada, yada. And the free next-gen patch is coming in the back half of this year. Although I wouldn't be surprised if it was like December of 2021, where it's like, Jesus, we had to really wait this long. And then, shockingly, yesterday, like Jason Schreier wrote his expose on Cyberpunk, where he talked to 20 people out of 500. which isn't that great of a number, but still, you can get some insight on Cyberpunk development. And one of the things that really stood out was apparently the E3 2018 demo that they showed off to everybody was mostly fake, or a lot of smoke and mirrors. A lot of the developers felt the game was, supposed to be a 2022 title, if I read it correctly, which I don't know if the game needed to be a 2022 release, but it definitely needed to be a 2021 release. And a bunch of other tidbits that Jason talked about, like crunch and some other things. So, what were your takeaway from this Cyberpunk stuff? Like, I guess one of the big things for me was the thought process that the game would just come together because they made Witcher. Like, it'll all come together at the end because we made The Witcher, and then it all didn't come together at the end. Which, was very similar to how the BioWare and Anthem story went, where they just felt the BioWare magic would just happen at the end, and Anthem would be a good game. And, so any thoughts on the whole Cyberpunk thing?
It's kind of like, I just want to know, I mean, how do you not know? Like, I've visited studios, right? And the studio I visited the most is Rare. I've been to Rare 3 times. They have a massive, massive testing room set up with PCs of all different specs and consoles of all different types. And you can just walk in there and test the games on retail hardware. Like, if I was the director of a massive company currently making one game, disregarding the updates to Gwent or whatever, I would test it myself. Wouldn't you? Mm-hmm. I mean, literally, you can. They would have that capability, and lockdown's not an excuse really, because they can just be like, well, I'm going into the office today, I'll avoid everyone. It's not like you're making a game targeting millions of people with one of the biggest ad campaigns I've seen this side of Grand Theft Auto, and the lead devs and execs don't play their own game? Doesn't make any sense. Does that mean that they're only playing on PC and being full blown, oh, everyone's gonna play it on PC anyway? Like, that's just a staggering amount of ignorance. I don't think that's an excuse.
I think in his article he said that when they went work from home, that all development and stuff was on PC, and that nobody was really testing the games on PS4 and Xbox One.
It just blows my mind that, like, an exec wouldn't even think to check. I mean, mistakes happen from time to time. But when you're shipping a product, like, I spell check my articles, and I'm writing for like a few 100,000 people at a time. I'm not making a massive game that hundreds of people have built and millions of people are going to play. If I was an exec, if I was the boss, if I was the leader, I would check myself, personally. I don't think it's an excuse. I think that's weird. I think that's just weird that they didn't even check, And it's that assumption that, like, when I played the game on PC and it ran fairly well, yeah, there were glitches, but, like, it didn't crash. It didn't look bad. It looked great. DLSS, ray tracing, whatever. It looked really good on my PC. My PC is not that powerful, but it looked great and it ran great. So, given CD Projekt Red's track record and the pure basis of logic that they would have checked the Xbox One and PS4 version, it's not a leap to think they would have at least met a baseline level of quality. But when you look at the videos of the Xbox One version and the PS4 version, it's like, man, what the hell went wrong with this? It's just wild. I just don't get it. I don't get the idea that they can blame QA. Like, why didn't they check?
So
You know,
who do you
do they
think?
think they're too good?
Who do you think is
I don't know.
ultimately to blame for Cyberpunk?
It's the execs. It's the leaders, man. Yeah, this is like this is a failing at the top level. I mean, if you've got a crisis like COVID, you have to sort of like make these decisions to delay a game, and you have to like make these decisions to not deceive your partners. And CD Projekt Red really, the executives at CD Projekt Red really showed off their sort of arrogance and their complacency and their immaturity in the way they handled the whole situation. Like, even disregarding what Jason Schreier wrote, like all the public facing stuff they did was just a train wreck after one thing after another. We talked about it before, you know. It was just like, first they, you know, they apologize, blah blah blah, and then they're like throwing QA under the bus, like you say. And then it was just like, then they were like, go to Sony to get a refund or whatever. They didn't even think to ask Sony if they had that system in place. Like, nobody was checking anything. Like, the bosses were like, yeah, we'll tell them to go to Sony and get a refund. Sony has no system in place where you can get an automatic refund. It's not like Steam. It's not like Xbox. It's a bit different. So like, then Sony support lines become inundated with calls like, give me a refund. CD Projekt Red said you'll give me a refund. They didn't even think to check that. So like, that's just like complacency, arrogance, a dereliction of duty. It just shows that the people who are in charge and approving these messages are just become lazy and complacent and a bit garbage. So in my mind, the only people to blame are the people at the top level who have been making these idiotic front facing decisions that at every step of the way has come out and fallen apart. It's just weird. And then like I see stuff like you know, playing the victim card and stuff like that. And no one approves or agrees with being harassed or dogpiled on, or especially like some of the more toxic fans sending death threats and stuff. None of that is okay, but they also refuse to acknowledge any sort of criticism sometimes, some of the execs that I've seen. And the excuses that were made, and I think sometimes like, so when you find success in life, there can be a sort of temptation to become arrogant and complacent. And we see this with YouTubers and stuff all the time, where they start to think they're untouchable. You know, you see these big, huge YouTubers and they think they're untouchable, and then they like do some stupid shit because they think they're untouchable, and then they get cancelled, and then they have to come out with an apology video, and then they have to disappear from the internet for a year, and then, you know, and stuff like that. And we see people trash their careers over arrogance. And I think sometimes like what defines us as people is how you overcome those calamitous mistakes, you know. Luckily, I had a lot of mine in my early 20s. So I've already been past that phase of sort of like, you know, thinking I'm untouchable and then, oh shit, fucking up, and then having to come to terms with it and then grow from there. But I think a lot of people who get successful forget about that. And CD Projekt Red clearly thought they were untouchable and invincible, and at least the executives did. Especially if like the stuff that Jason Schreier put out, that they thought, oh, we made The Witcher 3, we're invincible. And the whole BioWare magic thing, Anthem would be fine. You know, sometimes you have to fail to grow. And that's the thing I hope they take away from this.
And the
It's like
funny
Sony with the PS3, right?
and the funny thing is, I think like Cyberpunk's at minimum sold like 13 million copies even after refunds in like a week. Because they had like 8 million pre-orders and then like I think 5 million purchases like that week. So
it's my favorite. It's my favorite game I played since Prey. Like, I love it. I love everything about it. The stuff that you can do in that game that I just adore, you know. And like, I love immersive sims. Like, I love Prey. I love the original Deus Ex I love Deus Ex Human Revolution. I love the whole Cyberpunk genre. For me, this was a dream game. Like the devs of The Witcher making a Cyberpunk game, that's a dream come true for me. And playing it on PC largely was like what I had imagined, you know. But when they're marketing the game as a Grand Theft Auto like with the vehicle stuff, and then you find out that there's no physics in the environment really. There's no AI. All that stuff's meant to be in the background. They marketed it weird. They handled the game versions badly, and then they, you know, screwed up everything afterwards. It's
Do you
crazy.
do you regret not waiting to see what the console version is before posting your review of the game?
Yeah, actually, I do. I do regret it. It certainly made me reconsider doing that in the future. You know, because I made the assumption that it'd be fine, and I shouldn't have done.
Mm.
But that's what happens when you put trust in these companies sometimes. Like, you know, is what it is. But that's my failing. Like my failing doesn't really reflect on anyone else. When the lead dev of the execs at CD Projekt Red fails, it reflects on the whole company. They got like 500. They've got 500 devs whose reputation is damaged as a result of working for that company now. So I'm only responsible for my own mistakes. Luckily, they're responsible for the image of their whole company, and they should have been more careful. They should have been more thoughtful, less complacent, and all that stuff. Like if I'm complacent with an article, then I've only got myself to blame. But I ain't responsible for anyone else. It's just crazy situation, man. I just feel bad for the devs who worked hard on it and who aren't to blame for any of the bullshit that the execs did. It's always the same way. It's always the same way. It's like Star Wars Battlefront 2. No game dev went out there thinking, "Oh, we need this to be pay to win." That was just all EA, you know. But it is what it is. And I see that Rand is muted. Are you there, Rand?
I'm here. I'm here.
I think Rand might have had to go randomly AFK on me there.
No, can you hear me? I'm here.
So I'm going to pull up the chat because ad-libbing is difficult for me.
No, I'm here. I'm here. I'm sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
Anyways, you wanna end the show there and take some questions?
Yeah, let's take some questions from the peeps.
All right. So if you guys got any questions, put them in chat, and we'll definitely try to answer them. But if you're out of here, I want to thank each and every one of you guys for dropping by this Saturday. Sorry we didn't do it regular day. And I know the football games are on, so I know a lot of people are like, I want to watch Green Bay Packers versus the, I forget who the Green Bay Packers playing, I think the Rams. So appreciate you guys hanging out with us. If you enjoyed the show, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button and notification bell. And follow me and Jez on Twitter so you know when the podcast goes live. So, yeah, let's take a look. Magna Rex wants to know what games would you have Series X and S optimized that isn't yet? Any games that
Overwatch.
Overwatch, huh?
Actually, I mean, it's already 4K 60. What more could you do? I guess. I don't know. That is an interesting question. I'd love to see Quantum Break up leveled and ray traced and all that kind of stuff. I'd love to see Rise, some of those older games that were really good, get up leveled, but I know they're not going to happen because they're old and done. I don't know. That's a difficult question. What do you think, Ryan? Do you have a 120 hertz panel? See, it's different for me because I only have a 60 hertz panel. So, like, I'd love to see Overwatch running at 120 frames a second, but I don't have a TV for it.
You know, I do have a. I don't know. Like, I'm not for like like. I'm kind of upset that Cyberpunk is not going to have a next gen version until literally, who knows, 8 months from now. I think that's pathetic, to be honest with you. Clearly they needed to hold on to that game, and they probably should have just held on to it until the free next gen version was ready. Like the fact that the game came out, and I know like, oh, everybody's working from home and all that stuff, but like, I just kind of look at that and be like, the game came out in November or December actually, and now I'm gonna have to wait until another 7 months. Like, I don't know. Like,
they're clearly prioritizing the past gen versions.
well, they didn't do a good job of that either. I mean, it ran like shit on the Xbox One and the PS4. I don't know. Like, I'm kind of just more interested in like new games. I can't really think of anything I want to like go back and really play that needs to be updated. I'm kind of like hopeful that most of the games coming out from this point on will all be Series X enhanced, and if they aren't, then that would suck. Like, I think Hitman 3 comes out this week, and that's Series X enhanced, so that's great. And obviously the Medium is only on Series X and S, so that's enhanced for it. But I just hope we don't get any situation where like later in the year, like a game comes out, but it's like just Xbox One in the back and pat, and it's just like, that should be changed already. Jason says, what month is the Bethesda deal supposed to take place or close? I've heard February, April, July. Seems all over the place. Well, the only thing Microsoft has said is they expect it to close the second half of their fiscal year, which is anywhere between January and June. So your guess is just as good as mine or Jez's. It could literally be, it could be like May, it could be April. Like my prediction is February. So it's one of those months. I think it's going to close sooner rather than later. David wants to know if we think Discord's coming to Xbox. Jez, do you think you'll be able to use Discord video chat or voice chat on Xbox? I don't think so.
I don't think so. I think Microsoft wants you to use their systems. I don't know. It is what it is. They're like Xbox Party Chat's baked directly into Windows 10 just by pressing Windows key and G. I think Microsoft would rather use that. So I do.
Georgie wants you to give us a hint about the 2 unannounced AAA games Xbox has for this year.
No, I won't. Sorry, mate. You'll any hint I gave would be too much. You'll just have to wait and see.
Can you tell me after the podcast?
Yeah.
I promise. I promise not to leak it. And even if I did leak it, nobody would believe me anyways. So I include it in one of my videos, and nobody cares. But then as soon as you say something, they'd be like, "Industry Insider, Jez Corden says this," and I'll be like, "But I had it in my video 2 weeks ago."
This way, I don't know if they're games that would move the needle for people. I don't know how popular they'll be with people who listen to this podcast, but I don't know. I don't learn the nature of one of them, so we'll have to wait.
HK Gaming says, Jezran, do you think Perfect Dark will be first or third person? They've already said that it's first person in the developer interview after they revealed the game at the VGAs. Rob says, hey, Rand, Jez, do you think Microsoft will ever put their gaming IPs into possible movie adaptations, giving HBO Halo or something? So basically, like do you think they tried that a little bit, and it kind of all blew up in their face, like the whole TV shit.
We're still waiting for the Halo thing, man.
Yep.
Like, when is that Halo TV show coming out?
I have no idea.
Microsoft sucks at this stuff, man.
They really do.
I mean, if they just gave it to Netflix and just said, Netflix, make this good, maybe something will happen. I don't know.
Like Sony has that Last of Us show coming on HBO. I wonder if that will come before Halo. That'd be funny. Zach,
that would be funny.
Zach says, hey, do you guys think Xbox Series X and S will do better than the Xbox One? I'm assuming you mean sales-wise. Yeah, I do. I think the Series S, having that $300 system will essentially help out a lot in the long run. Once the supply kind of gets situated and more games start coming out, having that cheaper console will help in the long run. And considering the Xbox One launched at $500 and then nobody wanted it, or all the people that wanted it bought it in the first 2 months and then Microsoft really had a tough time selling it just because of the bad perception. Like back in 2013 and 2014, there was a lot of perception that the Xbox One couldn't play used games.
Yeah.
And that persisted for a long time. So I think it'll sell more. I don't think it'll outsell PlayStation 5. I think anybody that thinks that is a little bit delusional.
Yeah.
But it should sell more than the Xbox One.
Oh, speaking of which, Rand, I used the Xbox Series S, my main console, all week.
Oh, did you? How'd that go?
I am thoroughly impressed with it, actually.
But it's going to hold back the whole gen, Jez. What are you talking about?
Yeah, that's what they say. But I played like Observer, Redux, and some of the other games that are made for it, and I'm just really impressed. Like Observer System Redux looks better and runs better on the Xbox Series S than it does on the Xbox One X, which is like impressive. The fact that like you got this tiny little box that, if the games are made for it, run really well. So I think like as more games are next gen native and not backwards compatible, I think you'll really see the Xbox Series S come into its own. It's a really impressive little box. It really is.
I'm going to have to pick one of those up eventually. Mighty Ryan says, for a Series X digital, do you think they'll keep the tower design, go with the cube design, or go back to a traditional console design? So assuming there's a Series X digital coming at some point, Jez, what do you think they'll do?
I don't know. It's when it comes to these consoles, there's like airflow and stuff has to come first. So it ultimately depends on like what is heat generation going to look like? What technological advancements have been made for heat dissipation by then? I don't think they'll take on any majorly different designs until like they come up with like new computational architecture. Maybe
The only thing,
if anything, that could become bigger.
The only thing I can think of, or I see, is that if they shrink the console, like so you have an Xbox Series X but slim, is that they just take out the drive, and you'll have your regular Series X with the hard drive slim and then a Series X slim that doesn't have a disk drive, and all that changes is they just remove the drive.
Yeah, maybe.
That's the only thing that because I can't see them like, because that would, if you're gonna do that, that would just kind of like, you need to redesign everything, and I just don't see them doing it. Like it would just be like, here's the Series X, here's the two systems, and it's like boom, one has a hard drive, one doesn't, and then you put on a shell that doesn't have the opening, and then boom, you're ready to go, right? Very much similar to what they did with the Xbox One S, where it was literally just didn't have a disk drive, and it just had a different shell. Dingo Empire says, Jez, any news on the Fallout 4 60 frames patch? Why advertise it and not deliver?
COVID. Let's say it's COVID. I have no information on that personally. I could reach out and ask them, I guess.
Yeah, I just think it's one of those things that wasn't really planned for launch. And would always come later. Although I guess you do make a good point. Why even tell people you could do that and then not deliver? Because now you have a video out of Fallout 4 at 60 frames, but it's not there. And when is it coming? So yeah, that is a good question. I just think it was like, well, they had a lot of things they needed to do for launch, and that was one of those things that didn't need to be there, and that it'll be one of those things that they'll work on and probably get to sometime this year.
Yep.
One Bad Mother says, hey, does Windows Central recommend an HDMI to DisplayPort adapter for the Series X to monitor connection at 1440p 120 frames?
I don't. Something I can research, but I have no information at this time. Sorry. I've never looked into it before.
Let's see here. Apache says, Rand, when will you play Zelda for the first time? Well, I've already played Zelda. I've played the original Zelda and I played Wind Waker, so it's not like I've never played a Zelda game. I'm just really not that interested in playing on the Switch. I have Breath of the Wild. I just don't care. I just don't care to play anything on the Switch. I don't know. I just don't care about the console. I'll play Metroid Prime 4 though. I don't know. I know I'm a little different when it comes to Nintendo, but like I just do not care about anything Nintendo does, really. So yeah, they got free money out of me when I bought Breath of the Wild. But hey, I think I just did play a good Breath of the Wild game. I played Immortals Phoenix Rising, which everybody says is kind of Breath of the Wild like. Which, have you gotten a chance to play that game, Jez?
Breath of the Wild, not yet.
No,
I own it.
Immortals Phoenix Rising.
Oh no, it's not really. I don't really like the look of it so much. Too happy looking.
Special Ed says, tell Jez I love him no matter how he feels about me. So, Mediocre Ed loves you, Jez.
Oh, bless you.
Let's see here. The Glitch Doctor says, I hope Indiana Jones plays like the Tomb Raider reboot just to complete the copy circle. Indiana Jones to OG Tomb Raider to Uncharted to the Tomb Raider reboot back to Indiana Jones. That would be funny. I mean, realistically, like when I imagine in my head an Indiana Jones game, I kind of do think Tomb Raider and Uncharted. And it would be kind of funny that like Uncharted and Tomb Raider take all their inspiration from Indiana Jones, and then for an Indiana Jones game it takes inspiration back from the two ones that copied it, right? That would definitely be something. Let's see what else we got here. Scroll through the chat. Daniel says, hey, what if they close the deal with Bethesda at E3 2021 with Forza Horizon 5, Starfield announced, and Wolfenstein all coming at the end of the year? I think the reason I think they'll close before then is, I don't know, it's just, they wouldn't close it at E3 2021. And who knows if there is even if there is an E3. And I think one of the reasons why they want to close it sooner rather than later is because like you can start getting the teams and you can start figuring out what's coming when, and you can start like telling them, working with them what the plan for the future is, which is what they can't do right now. So if you can finish that off in February or March, you can get them on the path that you want them to take rather than waiting until, the back half of the year, like June. But yeah, I mean, at E3 is when I would, if there is a Forza Horizon 5, that will be when it's announced. If Starfield is this year, that's when it would get a big blowout. And same thing with Wolfenstein. I do think Wolfenstein gets announced this year. I just don't think it's this year, though. I think Jez agrees with me on that, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Let's see here. You know what? I think that'll be it for the show. Shout out to King Supreme. He just says, just finished Greenfall thanks to Game Pass. So, that's one of those games I never really got a chance to play. I do have it. I just haven't been able to play it. Daron says, hey, Rand, when are you going to be with Miles on his podcast? Miles keeps on asking me to be on his podcast on Windows Central, Jez.
You should do it, man.
One day I will. But he does it so early in the morning,
Yeah, it is pretty early. He's on mountain time, man.
But there's really nothing to talk about right now, so we'll have to wait until there's actually something to talk about. So, J-Dub is a shill says, hey, Jez, when is the Bone Cream console releasing? Bone Cream? Come on,
Bone
Jez.
Cream console.
Remember when you said that? You're going to turn it into an emote? Bone Cream?
Yeah, Bone Cream.
That was the color of the console?
I wonder, like, if they do a Bone Cream Xbox Series X at some point, like a white one. So I was looking at the Xbox Series S and thinking, man, I do wish it was black. But
yeah. Anyways, guys, I think that'll be it for the show. We'll be back next week. Got anything to say before we get out of here, Jez?
No, man. Just be cool to each other and say hi on Twitter. And stay awesome. Thanks for listening, guys.
Yep. Hit the like button and subscribe. And